Once upon a time, the world was a much calmer and more serene place. In a field, a shepherdess was peacefully tending to her sheep. Suddenly, something very strange happened, and the sky began to crack. The young woman then looked up, not understanding what was going on. Her face showed the pure terror of what was about to emerge, because a giant red eye appeared in the sky, watching everything. From then on, the world was invaded by the powerful demon king. To fight against them, there were the divine knights in service to God. They were granted power and thus sent the monsters packing. Even with the victory, a demonic mist was left behind. Almost everyone corrupted by it ended up kicking the bucket, and the rest who survived didn't have a very happy ending. They transformed into horrible, mindless creatures. One of these creatures was a bizarre plant that devoured people. With that, a sound of something breaking echoed through the dark place. With that, the survivors turned into terrifying demons. Faced with this, one of these creatures attacks violently but is defeated. The monster's head falls lifelessly to the ground shortly after. Arriving on the scene, a knight laments that he arrived too late. This is Kieran, the vice commander of the 9th Division of the Divine Knights. He looks on in desolation at the bodies of the scattered villagers. At that moment, one of his soldiers informs him that a red moon has appeared. A moon like that means an extremely powerful demon is about to show up. Suddenly, Kieran hears a strange noise coming from nearby. That sound was coming from a building, and his soldier suggests they fall back. However, the light of the red moon begins to pour in everywhere. Faced with the situation, the vice commander is shocked by what he finds. Because in the midst of all that destruction, he finds a human baby. 15 years pass, and the story takes us to a grand castle. There, in an orphanage, the children thank the knights for the food. One of the boys from the orphanage approaches to speak with our MC. The white-haired young man named Laika gets annoyed and asks why his serving is so small. On his tray there was only a bit of soup, a piece of bread, and a few grains. The other boy is confused, not understanding the guy's question. But our MC quickly plays it off, saying it was nothing. Meanwhile, the other children in the dining hall were eating a hearty feast. And poor Laika was always isolated, eating alone in the corner. He introduces himself while reflecting on his situation in that place. When he was just a baby, his village was attacked, and he was the only survivor. Because of that, everyone finds him strange, and the mark on his face is supposedly proof that he's a monster. Thus, because of this suspicion, he was always mistreated by everyone. One of the cooks shamelessly throws dirt and leftovers into his bowl. The man even mocks him, saying that was enough food for a monster like him. After all the children in that orphanage had lost their families to demons. Shortly after, the same cook calls the boy over, and he notices a new kid there. The cook points to the new boy who is crying in the corner. He explains that the boy's parents were devoured by a monster, and he throws the blame on our MC, saying it was his kind that did it. With that, all the others join in and glare at him, wanting him to apologize. Our MC tries to defend himself, saying he's human and it's not his fault. But the little boy in tears asks for his mom back and calls him a monster. Without a second thought, the cook lands a solid punch right on the kid. And with great anger, the man again demands that he apologize. On the ground with no choice, the white-haired young man is forced to give in. In front of everyone, he finally apologizes for something he didn't even do. Later, he's left cleaning the hall alone, and this routine has lasted for a decade. He knows that, in principle, he can't leave until he becomes an adult. However, when they turn 15, a priest appears for a selection test. There are only 5 days left until the Great Knight selection test. Laika can't take this life anymore, and is determined to get out of that place. And to do that, he will become a divine knight at all costs. When the day arrives, the selection ceremony finally begins in the chapel. All the 15-year-olds who wish to be knights gather. The priest then asks for all the candidates to take a step forward. That cook approaches and says that a monster like him will never be a knight. Before everyone, a holy chalice is presented to begin the ritual. The priest explains that if the liquid turns blue, they cannot become knights. But if it glows gold, they gain power by drinking the chalice's contents. He warns that this ceremony can only be done once in a lifetime. Therefore, the priest asks them to be very careful with their vows. At this, the first boy approaches to make his oath. He swears he will never run away again when facing a monster, because in his past, he saw his little sister devoured by a giant snake. With tears in his eyes, the boy shouts that he will finish every last monster. The angel statue seems to react to the young man's strong feelings. With that, an intense golden light illuminates the entire orphanage chapel. The priest confirms that the boy's wish has reached God, and the chalice glows. Without hesitation, the young man drinks the sacred liquid to receive the divine blessing. Immediately after, immense power explodes from his body in a golden aura. He is amazed, feeling the strength overflowing from within him. Our MC and the other orphans watch everything, completely shocked. The next boy swears to protect everyone there as if they were his family. Because of this, his vow is also accepted and he is enveloped in golden light. One by one, the other youths make their vows and are also blessed. The ceremony continues with several candidates managing to pass the test. Seeing his peers' success, Laika becomes even more determined to pass. He thinks that he will definitely become a divine knight too. From there, the priest calls the next one, and our MC steps forward. He places his hands on the table, preparing to make his oath. Before the holy chalice, Laika stares at the object with great confidence, full of hope. He swears that he will become a knight to protect people. With a smile on his face, he hopes his wish will be accepted by God. But suddenly, the boy stops, confused by his own oath. He despairs because he can't think of anything to offer as a sacrifice. His only wish was to leave that place so he could finally be happy. Faced with the situation, he realizes he has never had anything valuable in his life. A voice in his mind tells him to offer anything important from within him. Suddenly, a strange bluish energy begins to emanate from his body. The white-haired youth is confused about what is happening to him. He feels something being pulled from his body against his will. To everyone's astonishment, the chalice fills with a bubbling, purple substance. Everyone around is frightened by the bizarre scene they just witnessed. The priest is shocked, for he has never seen such a sinister color. The old man's gaze shows all his dread and suspicion of the boy. Without a second thought, he shouts that the ceremony is over and tells everyone to leave. In disbelief, Laika tries to protest, saying his ceremony isn't finished. But suddenly, one of the boys attacks another with his new knightly power. The blow is so brutal that it ends up tearing his classmate's arm off. Given the situation, the cook looks at the priest and confirms his suspicions. He turns to Laika and accuses him of being a monster after all. Our MC is confused and wonders what he truly is. With that, the cook and the other boys decide to finish him right there. They all advance together to attack the white-haired young man. The man shouts to get the monster disguised as a human, without mercy. The new knights then surround Laika, ready for the final attack. The desperate priest shouts for them to stop, as that power is not for humans. At that moment, the entire chapel floor begins to crack and break apart. Laika stares at one of the boys and doesn't understand what's happening to him, because the boy begins to transform into a horrible and terrifying creature. The bizarre transformation continues, and he turns into a monster with red eyes. The boy turns into a giant monster and destroys the entire chapel floor. The priest is completely terrified, not knowing what to do. With that, the cook screams that it's a demon, and the creature attacks. The monster looks at its hand and seems confused by its new form. The hand of the boy he attacked earlier begins to turn to dust. Desperate, the priest tells everyone to evacuate and call the knights. But the creature quickly grabs one of the running children, and without any mercy, the monster attacks the poor, defenseless boy. Another one of the youths also begins to transform into a bizarre creature. Fallen and injured, our MC sees a piece of stone falling towards him. He stares at the creature and realizes that it was actually a monster. Laika's face shows pure shock at the whole chaotic situation. But the first boy who passed the test steps in front to protect him. He remembers his vow and the priest's words that he would never run again. Even so, fear takes over as he sees the monster approaching. The monster grabs the boy, who begs for help while Laika watches, paralyzed. And without the slightest mercy, the creature simply crushes the boy in its hand. At this, another youth shouts for everyone to fight together against the threat. Using their new knightly powers, they attack the monster with everything they've got. Our MC panics, unable to understand what is happening. But the creature easily grabs one of the boys, attacking it in mid-air. And the monster completely obliterates him, leaving only pieces of his body. The other youths who try to fight are also brutally defeated. The boy despairs, seeing that his power is nothing against that monster. Shortly after, the creature turns and faces one of the other young knights. With a giant mouth and a disgusting tongue, it prepares to attack. The bizarre tongue then lunges with full force towards our MC. The creature's eye reflects Laika's despair as he feels his end approaching. He can't believe he's going to check out in a horrible place like that orphanage. In this moment of panic, he looks at the purple chalice and gets an idea. His only hope of survival was that mysterious holy chalice. With that, our MC runs desperately towards the table. With tears in his eyes, he shouts that it's okay and he doesn't care about the risk. Without a second thought, he grabs the chalice with the bubbling purple liquid. He'd rather risk it all than perish there, and he chugs the contents in one go. Immediately after, the strange liquid begins to take effect on his body. The creature attacks him right at that moment, but something unexpected happens to the young man. The monster stumps hard on the ground, but our MC is no longer there. Suddenly, a hand with a powerful purple aura emerges from the dust. With that, an explosion of energy engulfs the entire destroyed chapel. The creature is hit head on and screams in pain from the impact of the power. Laika then reappears with a different look and much longer hair. His eyes glow with purple energy, and he seems much stronger. He looks at his hand, not understanding what happened to his body. In a broken piece of the floor, he sees the reflection of his new form. The boy stares at his reflection, not believing what he sees, and wonders if that's really him. Despite feeling a strange coldness in his body, incredible power overflows from within. Suddenly, one of the other monsters that appeared charges to attack with its blade arm. With absurd speed, our MC dodges and rushes towards the creature. But the larger monster attacks him with several tentacles to stop his advance. Using the tentacles as support, he skillfully runs towards the enemy. His fist glows with powerful energy, and he prepares a devastating attack. Getting up close, he lands a solid blow to the bizarre creature's face. A magic circle appears on his hand, and he aims directly at the monster's mouth. With a shout of "Explode!" he unleashes all of his new and incredible magic. Thus, a beam of purple energy is fired with tremendous force. The attack hits the inside of the creature head-on, causing massive damage. The monster's head simply can't take it and begins to explode from the inside. The creature's body falls lifelessly to the ground as it slowly disintegrates. Our MC returns to his normal form and a tear streams down his face. He sees his reflection running and is startled by his own image. Soon after, the transformation ends and his hair returns to normal. With that, all the energy dissipates and he collapses exhausted on the ground. The only surviving boy watches everything from a distance, not understanding a thing. He is shocked and can't believe the kid defeated the monsters. Our MC then looks at his hand and notices something incredible. Because his arm, which had been torn off, was back to normal. That power he used was called purification, and he didn't know it. Suddenly, a giant sword descends from the heavens and impales the dead monster. The sword was beautiful and ornate, with a red gem on the hilt. The surviving boy says the sword will purify the demon's miasma. Atop the weapon, a mysterious woman appears and apologizes for being late. She then turns to Laika and asks if he was the one who defeated the creature. The red-haired woman stares at the boy with a confident smile on her face. Our MC is in shock as he realizes she is a divine knight. With a smile, the knight praises the young man, saying he's impressive. The warrior balances masterfully on top of her giant sword. She acknowledges that defeating that creature was a memorable feat. At this, our MC runs towards the commander of the knights. The woman introduces herself as Arthur, the powerful leader of the divine knights. Laika is shocked by the size of the sword and the power of a knight. Suddenly, other knights arrive on the scene, calling for the commander. One of them playfully complains that she left them behind. Arthur simply replies that they were too slow to keep up with her. The boy realizes that woman is the commander, and an idea strikes him. If she acknowledges him, he can finally leave that horrible orphanage. Without wasting time, he runs towards Arthur to speak with her. With great determination, our MC shouts that he has always wanted to be a knight. The white-haired youth begs her to let him join them. His determined gaze shows all his will to change his own destiny. But suddenly, the surviving boy points right at our MC. He desperately screams for the knights to take out that monster. The commander finds that a very dangerous way to talk to a friend. Laika doesn't understand the boy's accusation. The boy continues, shouting that Laika was the only one who survived the village attack. The knights look at the situation seriously. He accuses the boy of having transformed without an oath and using a strange power. To him, there's no way the youth could be human. At this, our MC desperately tries to defend himself. He stammers that it's absolutely not true. Not paying him much mind, the commander approaches the accusing boy, and with a simple flick, she hits him on the forehead. That seemingly weak blow sends the boy flying with great force. Laika watches the scene, completely shocked. The youth rolls across the destroyed floor, unable to get up after the attack. The commander's strength was truly impressive. Arthur then says she doesn't like that kind of talk. After all, it was our MC who saved him from being done for. With a bloody nose, the boy begs for forgiveness on the floor. He pleads for help, completely terrified of the situation. Laika is speechless, watching the bizarre scene. He can't process everything that just happened. The red-haired woman turns to the youth. She asks what he meant about not having made a vow. The boy explains that he was about to make his oath. But right then, the demon appeared and ruined everything. Even so, he shouts that he gained the power to fight, because he drank from the chalice. He believes it's the power of a knight. The commander, however, explains that's impossible. Without a vow, no one should be able to obtain a knight's power. With a cold sweat on her face, the commander asks what he offered. Her red eyes stare at the boy, and she wants to know with whom he made the vow. Our MC is speechless and tries to say he didn't do anything of the sort. Arthur just watches him in silence, waiting for a convincing answer. Even so, she says he has piqued her interest and asks to see his power. The woman says it'll be much faster if she sees it with her own eyes. At this, the boy panics because he doesn't know how to use the transformation. He tries everything, but nothing happens while the commander watches him. Losing her patience, Arthur decides she's going to find a way to speed things up. The woman then grabs the white-haired youth by the hair without mercy. Our MC is confused and doesn't understand what she's doing. And without a second thought, the commander hurls him high into the air with great force. The boy flies so high that he becomes desperate, not knowing what's happening. From below, Arthur shouts for him to show his true power now. With a smile, she warns that either he uses his power or he'll fall and won't be saved. The blue-haired knight calls her a demon while complaining about the bright light. Our MC screams desperately in freefall, not understanding that woman. He continues to yell as he plummets faster and faster towards the ground. Amidst the clouds, he realizes he's a goner if he doesn't use his mysterious power. Suddenly a giant, bizarre creature appears in his path. That flying monster looked like a whale and was right in front of him. Like is completely shocked and has no idea what's happening. Arthur realizes she forgot that this was the habitat of a sky-devouring bird. The giant creature then opens its enormous mouth to devour the falling youth. Without any difficulty, the flying whale swallows him in one gulp. At the scene, the commander just lets out an "oh," showing no reaction. The blue-haired knight decides to go help, but Arthur stops him from advancing. With a smile, she says this is the perfect chance to see the boy's power. Because of this, the knight glares at her and repeats that she really is a demon. The bizarre creature continues to fly peacefully after swallowing its prey. Inside the creature, our MC realizes he's in the monster's stomach. Around him, he sees various bones and skulls floating in the disgusting liquid. With that, anger takes over the boy as he refuses to go out like this. Suddenly, he hears a strange noise from above and becomes alert. At this, a bizarre creature with sharp teeth appears to attack him. Soon after, several other creatures just like it appear everywhere. One of them charges with full force towards the youth to devour him without mercy. At that moment, he remembers all the suffering he endured at the orphanage. With tears in his eyes, he recalls how he was always mistreated by everyone. Surrounded, he curses the orphanage and the knights for everything they put him through. But our MC isn't giving up and faces the creatures with hatred. He shouts that perishing in a disgusting place like this is even worse. From there, a powerful purple energy explodes from his body with full force. In his new form, he unleashes an incredible and overwhelming power. Thus, the energy creates a whirlwind that destroys everything around it. From below, the knights watch everything very carefully without interfering. The knight asks why she's so reckless, and the commander replies she just wants to know. She wants to know if the boy's power to defeat a demon will be beneficial for them. Suddenly, the flying creature begins to scream in pain, feeling something tearing from within. An X-shaped mark appears on the monster's belly, indicating an internal attack. With that, our MC in his transformed state bursts out of the creature. He flies out amidst the remains of the monster he defeated with his overwhelming power. Soon after, the power dissipates and the white-haired youth begins to fall from the sky. The knights below watch the boy plummeting rapidly towards them. The blue-haired knight prepares to catch him before he hits the ground. With a leap, he manages to grab our MC in mid-air and cushion the fall. Landing safely on the ground, the knight asks if the boy is okay. Our MC grumbles a bit, still recovering from the whole situation. The man notices that fortunately, the white-haired youth suffered no injuries. He comments that to defeat that thing alone, the boy has the level of a vice commander. A narration reveals that 15 years ago, Kieran was the only one to oppose getting rid of that baby. His expression in the past shows all his concern for the child's fate. Back in the present, the blue-haired knight is introduced as Kieran, the commander of the 9th Division. However, he says that perhaps it would have been better for the youth to have perished back then. At this, Arthur calls our MC, who turns around, startled by the commander. The woman decides they will take the boy to keep his unknown power under surveillance. In addition, she turns to the other survivor from the orphanage with something to say. The boy who accused him before just looks up, listening to the commander's words. The warrior explains that they are not in a position to be picky about their forces right now, because humanity doesn't have much time left, and the sky seems to be shattering like glass. The shards of reality fall into an infinite and terrifying darkness. The scene then shifts to several carriages flying through the skies on a sunny day. Those vehicles were pulled by winged horses and traveled at high speed. Inside one of the carriages, our MC sleeps soundly, exhausted. His eyes finally open, and a mysterious voice asks if he's awake yet. Upon waking, our MC comes face to face with the commander smiling at him. Confused, he apologizes and asks where they were. Looking out the window, the white-haired youth is shocked by the view, because the carriage was flying through the skies, pulled by a winged horse. Arthur explains that they were in a hurry and couldn't wait for him to say his goodbyes. Our MC then repeats the part about saying goodbye to everyone at the orphanage. With a smile, he asks if he is now part of the Order of Knights. The commander confirms with a simple "Wes," and a very friendly look. She then explains that from that day on, he will be under their care. The red-haired woman extends her hand to the youth with confidence. Laika is confused and repeats the part about being under her care, not understanding. Holding his hand, she says he's an anomaly and needs to prove his worth. The boy thinks that if it means getting out of the orphanage, he'll accept anything. Suddenly, he remembers something and asks what happened to the orphanage. Karen replies that the building was badly damaged and will be officially demolished. He continues, explaining that the staff and surviving children will be split up and sent to other places. At this, Arthur reveals that most of the children who made the pact ended up gone, and asks if he wanted to say goodbye to anyone. Our MC then remembers all the mistreatment he suffered and responds with a simple, cold, no. With his head down, he confirms that he had no one he truly cared about in that horrible place. Changing the subject, the boy asks where they are going, and the commander points to the holy capital of Alha. She explains that the headquarters is there because a calamity from the mythical age could happen at any moment. The white-haired youth is confused and repeats the part about the so-called mythical age, not understanding a thing. The red-haired woman then points out of the carriage and tells him to look closely. With wide eyes, our MC is completely shocked by the bizarre sight, because the sky begins to shatter as if it were glass, revealing a giant book in the middle of nowhere. The book then tells the story that a long time ago, a rift opened in the great sky, and from this rift came essence and demonic beasts that were from a completely different world. The leader of this whole invasion was the powerful and fearsome Demon King, a god from another world. His evil energy spread rapidly everywhere, contaminating the land. With this, he created his avatars, the celestial demons, to spread his influence even further. The Order of Knights of that time managed to seal the demons, but the damage was already done to the continent, and because of that, the habitable area for humans has drastically decreased since then. Back in the carriage, Arthur explains that they still don't know where the rift in the sky really leads. With a serious look, she reveals that the only certainty they have is that the crack is slowly growing. The cracked sky was proof that danger was getting closer and closer to all of them. Faced with this imminent threat, the only ones who can stand against it are the members of the Order of Knights. Hearing the whole story, our MC gulps, shocked by that responsibility. With a smile, the commander ruffles the boy's hair to calm him down a bit. The red-haired woman then leans in and says she has high hopes for his power. Blushing bright red, the youth stammers and asks if she really has hopes for him. Holding his chin, the warrior confirms and says she feels something very powerful coming from him. Her gaze becomes serious and intense, and the boy says her name, not understanding the situation. She then explains that it's because of the light in his eyes when he transforms, and also because of his fire attacks and the regeneration of his arm that was torn off. The commander finishes by saying she has never encountered a power that piqued her interest so much. The commander says she still doesn't know what he offered for his pact, but for now, she just wants his power to be used for a good cause. The red-haired woman asks him to use his strength alongside them for the good of the people. Blushing, our MC agrees to the proposal without a moment's hesitation. Seeing his reaction, the commander just gives a satisfied smirk. Soon after, she informs him she has a job for him and kicks him out of the carriage. Desperate, the white-haired youth screams as he falls towards the forest. The fall is so fast that he becomes just a blur amidst the trees. With that, he lands hard on the ground, raising a large cloud of dust. Lying on the ground, our MC groans a bit, feeling the impact of the fall. But suddenly, he notices something very strange, and his eyes widen, because he felt no pain, and his body feels more natural than ever. Arthur's voice explains that those who make a pact gain special powers and physical abilities. She says their job isn't just to slay monsters, and his first mission is to clean up the trash there. The warrior tells him to run to the city when he's done, and not to get the direction wrong. Our MC is confused and repeats the words "clean up the trash" to himself. Suddenly, he hears the sound of approaching footsteps and goes on high alert. Hidden in the forest, three strange men confirm that the knight's carriage has already left. The group's leader then notices the youth's presence and asks who that brat is. They approach and ask if it was our MC who made the noise earlier. The boy stands on guard, not knowing who these suspicious people in front of him are. The bearded man deduces he must be an abandoned child or some orphan. But for the bandit, it doesn't matter as long as he can sell the boy for a good price. It finally clicks and our MC realizes these guys are bandits. His look shows that he finally understood what the commander meant by trash. The man tells him to come quietly, and behind him, three tied-up children appear. Seeing the child's scared face, Leica remembers his own past in the orphanage. The bandit advances, but our MC shouts for them to let the children go right now. The group's leader is surprised and stares at the boy, not understanding his audacity. With his eyes glowing, he says this is his first mission and he'll finish them off quickly. The bandits wonder who this brat is. They suspect the youth might be part of the Order of Knights. Our MC just stares at the group with a serious look. He shows not an ounce of fear in the face of the situation. The bandit leader grumbles angrily and doesn't care about the boy, because to him, this was his territory. Without a second thought, the man draws his sword. He's ready to attack the white-haired youth. From there, he shouts for his men to get the boy, and they all advance together for the attack. Suddenly, a flash illuminates the entire forest. The sound of clashing steel echoes throughout the area. One of the thugs attacks but misses completely. He's confused because our MC simply vanished. To the men's astonishment, the youth was already behind them. He approaches the children and says everything is okay now. The criminals turn around, completely shocked by the scene. They can't believe the boy's absurd speed. At this, our MC protects the kidnapped children and asks them to stay a little behind him. His eyes glow with a frightening red energy. He glares at the bandits with a look full of hatred. The men are terrified by the boy's aura. Fear takes hold of all of them at that moment. Even though they outnumber him, they hesitate to attack again. The white-haired youth's power was intimidating. With that, one of the bandits decides to attack from a distance with his bow. He shouts as he fires an arrow with all his might. The arrow flies at high speed towards our MC, but the boy dodges it with impressive ease. The archer screams in desperation as the youth has vanished again. He wonders where our MC could have gone. One of his henchmen then spots the boy on the other side. He points and shouts to alert everyone to his new position. With that, another one of the criminals readies his wrist, mounted crossbow. The man prepares to shoot the white-haired boy. The bandit yells for him to perish and fires the giant arrow. The projectile flies with full force towards our MC, but the youth is not intimidated and prepares a counterattack. His hand fills with a powerful, flaming energy. With a punch to the ground, he unleashes a wave of power. That energy destroys the arrow before it can hit him. The explosion of purple flames rushes towards the bandits. They have no time to dodge the surprise attack. The men are completely shocked by the boy's power. They can't believe what they just witnessed. The purple energy begins to engulf the entire clearing. A strange silhouette emerges from within the flames. The boy's body undergoes a bizarre transformation. His feet touch the ground with new and incredible strength. In his new form, he faces the criminals and says he's going to end this. His appearance is much more intimidating now. His eyes glow with a sinister energy, and he promises to be quick. A tear of blood runs down his face again. The bandits panic and call him a monster. They realize they're dealing with something out of the ordinary. Without wasting time, our MC charges forward with all his might. He defeats the men with impressive speed. Afterward, only purple flames remain at the site of the fight. The bandits' bodies vanish in the explosion of power. In his new form, our MC stares into the void. His intimidating presence is surrounded by purple flames and power. But he quickly realizes something is very wrong. The white-haired youth senses that the danger is not over yet. With that, he shouts with an imposing voice not to move. His command echoes throughout the clearing with total authority. Because the bandit leader was using one of the children as a hostage, he held a knife right next to the little boy's neck. The criminal then yells a very clear threat. If the boy gets any closer, he won't hesitate to harm the child. At this, the man's face shows his complete desperation. He was terrified by the youth's display of power. The knife's blade presses against the poor child's neck. The situation was extremely tense and dangerous for the hostage. Our MC understands there was someone else there. He realizes the situation is even more complicated. Soon after, the other two children appear, frightened. They were watching everything from hiding, terrified by the scene. So Leica charges forward with absurd speed. He tries to close the distance to end it quickly. Because of this, the bandit presses the knife harder. A small cut appears on the defenseless boy's neck. Our MC stops and observes the scene in silence. He needs to think of a plan to save the child. With his hand glowing, he seems to understand what he must do. An idea comes to his mind to solve the problem. He raises his hands and says he won't get any closer. In return, the boy asks him to let the children go. But the criminal yells there's not a chance, and says that those children are very valuable merchandise. The bandit shouts that the children's parents were already taken out by demons, so he was just making good use of them before they met the same fate. With a disgusting smile, he continues his despicable speech, and says that if they were sold to some rich, perverted old man, that sick man finishes by saying that even they would be happy. But his speech is cut short by a surprise attack. Because a whip of purple flames wraps around the bandit's arm, the energy burns his skin with overwhelming power. At this, the criminal screams in pain, feeling the intense heat. He doesn't understand where that mysterious attack came from. The force of the blow yanks him backward with full force, and in the process, he ends up letting go of the child he was holding hostage. Our MC then reminds him of his promise. He points out that he kept his word and didn't get any closer. On the ground, the bandit stares at the boy, completely shocked. The white-haired youth looks thoughtful about his new power. After all, he didn't expect he could create a sword and a whip. His power was much more versatile than he had imagined. Thinking that this is very useful, he turns to the children. The boy then asks if the scared little kid was okay, but he realizes the little ones are afraid of him. His transformed state was truly terrifying. The glow in his eyes softens as he sees their fear. Our MC understands he needs to calm them down somehow. Unable to take it anymore, the little boy starts to cry out of fear. The whole situation was a major trauma for the poor child. Faced with that bizarre figure, the boy couldn't stop. He was terrified by the appearance of his savior. With that, the white-haired youth undoes his transformation, and with a sigh, he finally returns to his normal form. With that, He gently places his hand on the little boy's head. The white-haired youth tries to calm the poor, scared child. With a hug, he comforts him and asks if he was scared. Laika shows a caring side he never had a chance to reveal. Suddenly, the boy notices something strange and is carried away. The children join together to carry their savior from there. Our MC doesn't understand what's happening. His confused face shows he didn't expect this. The children drag him along the ground while screaming for help. They desperately call for a mister to help them. They finally arrive at the holy capital of Alha. The grand gate of the knight's headquarters is revealed. Up high, Kiran watches their arrival with a serious look. He was waiting for the new recruit's return. He notices the youth arriving but soon spots something very strange. His expression changes from serious to completely confused. Because the 3 children were carrying our unconscious MC. They struggled to bring the boy inside the gate. The white-haired youth was completely out cold after the fight. Using his power left him exhausted and with no energy. Not understanding the situation, Kiran jumps down to get a closer look. He goes to meet them to understand what happened. One of the children explains that the boy saved them and brought them there. But after everything, he ended up passing out from exhaustion. Kiran then picks him up and scolds him for giving the children trouble. He throws the youth over his shoulder like a sack. With a smile, he says that counts as a demerit, and our MC continues to sleep peacefully. From there, Kiran carries him inside the headquarters. A new phase in Laika's life was about to begin. In a brightly lit room, the night leaders discuss what to do with the boy. They need to decide the future of the new and mysterious recruit. A woman named Fran finds his sleeping face adorable. Because of this, the head of the 2nd Division gives him a perfect score. As for her vice chief, Kenneth, he calls him an idiot and gives him a big X. He complains that his boss is too soft on the newbie. Griff, the head of the 4th Division, finds it absurd that he got tired. To the old man, a simple cleanup job wasn't that big of a deal. And Jack, the vice chief of the 6th Division, is disappointed. He expected a monster, but for now, he'll just observe the boy. At this, Commander Arthur, seated on her throne, reprimands them. She says they are being too hard on the rookie. With a smile, the red-haired woman decides his future, and announces that the observation of the boy will continue. Because of this, everyone agrees they need to see more growth. The youth's next mission will be even more decisive. The next morning at the grand headquarters of the Order of Knights. The place was imposing and looked like a castle. On a table, a bowl of fresh fruit shone in the light. That feast seemed to be for someone very important. Beside it were several delicious and very well-prepared dishes. A meal fit for a king was served for the boy. The table was enormous and completely loaded with food. There was every kind of meat and dessert one could imagine. Faced with all that, our MC's mouth waters. He can't believe the amount of food. With his eyes sparkling, he realizes all of this is for him. It was the first time he had seen so much food in his life. Without wasting time, the white-haired youth begins to devour everything. He eats desperately as if there were no tomorrow. As he ate hastily, a hand offers a glass of water. Our MC is startled and almost chokes on his food. The young woman helping him was Fran, who smiles gently at him. The head of the 2nd Division was watching him with a caring look. He then takes the glass and drinks all the water in one go. The white-haired youth was very thirsty after everything. The woman apologizes and tells him to eat slowly. After all, no one there was going to steal his food. With a shy smile on his face, our MC agrees with her. His expression shows how happy he is at that moment. Her kindness was something he had never received before. This new life was completely different from his previous one, because he remembers how he could finally eat in peace, without anyone bothering him or forcing him to eat garbage. And best of all, he would no longer be mistreated by anyone. His days of suffering in that horrible orphanage were over. Because of this, the boy is very happy to have joined the order, and he even got a brand new uniform. Suddenly, a mysterious voice calls for him in the middle of the hall. That sound interrupts his happy thoughts right away. It was Kenneth, who approaches and asks if he really was Laika. The vice chief stares at him with a very serious expression. His gaze was cold and calculating as he observed the rookie. He didn't seem the least bit friendly towards the poor boy. Sitting in the chair, our MC confirms his identity. He doesn't understand what this guy suddenly wants with him. Without any warning, Kenneth gets closer and stares at him up close. The intimidation was clear on his face and in his posture. With his mouth full of food, the white-haired youth is speechless, and just asks what's going on, not understanding anything. Kenneth glares at him with disdain and just grunts contemptuously. His arrogant attitude made it clear what he thought of the rookie. He then says the boy has the face of a complete idiot. Our MC reacts instantly by sticking his tongue out at him. The vice commander turns and tells the youth to follow him. He wants to find out if the rookie is useless trash or a useful idiot. Our MC is outraged by the guy's attitude, and asks what his problem is, showing up out of nowhere like that. At the question, the guy introduces himself to the rookie. He reveals his name is Kenneth in a very serious tone. Immediately after, he introduces himself as the vice commander of the 2nd Division. His posture was imposing and very intimidating. Leica repeats his title, not understanding what's happening, but Kenneth just tells him to shut up and follow him. From there, he turns to Fran, who is still there, and asks how long she's going to stay in that maid outfit. He calls her commander and warns that it's time to go. The white-haired woman is surprised by the sudden order. The commander tries to say she just needs to put the plate away, but he insists she hurry up because it was time. Our MC is shocked to discover the truth. He can't believe that young woman was a division commander. Soon after, the 3 of them leave the headquarters and follow a trail. Fran was already in her knight commander uniform. The white-haired youth is very nervous about the situation. He keeps looking around, completely lost. With that, Fran places a hand on his shoulder to calm him. She tells him not to worry because they have a lot to do. With a smile, the commander explains that their objective is simple, and that everyone must return safe and sound from the mission. Our MC agrees a bit awkwardly with the commander. Her kindness still left him very surprised and flustered. Fran then starts walking and speaks in a serious tone. She had something very important to explain to the rookie. In the boy's mind, the image of her as a maid still lingered. He couldn't believe that young woman was a commander. As they walk, he thinks she doesn't seem important at all. Soon after, Kenneth announces that they were almost at the location. The commander then turns and says she'll explain everything again. She wanted the mission to be very clear to all of them. Kenneth reveals that a monster was spotted in the capital that morning. Because of that, they were sent to handle the situation. With that, the vice commander looks at the white-haired boy and says this is the chance to see what he can really do. Fran adds that the other commanders discussed him, so that mission would basically be a power evaluation. Our MC is completely shocked by the news. He repeats the word evaluation and can't believe it's for real. Desperation takes over, and he grabs his own head. The boy absolutely did not want to lose this new life of his. Seeing his panic, the commander ruffles his hair to calm him, and with a smile, says she has high hopes for the boy. The white-haired woman continues and says she's heard a lot about him. Commander Arthur had spoken of his great abilities. Leica is speechless and repeats the part about high hopes. He wasn't used to receiving that kind of praise. A new light of determination appears in his eyes. Those words of encouragement completely changed his mood. Full of confidence, he says if that's all it is, it'll be easy, and that the him of now can take out monsters in an instant. But Kenneth taunts him, saying those are bold words for someone who had to be carried. And our MC wonders how he knew about that. The vice commander then warns that if he or the commander finds him useless, the white-haired youth will be kicked out of the Order of Knights. And judging by the boy's idiotic face, he's already sure. The arrogant knight believes that's exactly what's going to happen. Faced with the provocation, our MC explodes with anger. He can't believe the audacity of that insufferable guy. With that, the youth yells, asking what his problem is, and says they're the same age, but the other one thinks he's superior. Fran quickly steps in and asks the two to stop fighting. The situation between them was getting more and more tense. With a smile, she apologizes for Kenneth's behavior because of his pact. He is always brutally honest. Leica repeats the word pact and becomes thoughtful about the situation. He seems to understand the vice commander's side a little, but suddenly it clicks and he realizes the real offense. His face shows that he understood the boy's true insult. With that, he shouts, asking if Kenneth really thinks he's an idiot. The vice commander just confirms without caring in the slightest. Changing the subject, the knight says that from what he's heard, our MC hasn't really made a pact with anyone yet. He then stares at the white-haired youth with a serious look and asks directly if he has made his knight's oath yet. The boy looks away and responds very defensively. He doesn't understand where the vice commander is going with that question. Kenneth explains that a pact is the heart and the price for power, and the greater the sacrifice, the greater the strength they obtain. Our MC shouts that he already knew all of that, but on his face, the surprise was very evident to everyone else. His eyes widen as he understands the gravity of the situation. This pact business was much more serious than he had imagined. Suddenly, Kenneth draws a strange weapon and points it at him. The vice commander was not joking around in the slightest. Without a second thought, the boy presses the weapon to his forehead. Our MC is frozen by the sudden and unexpected action. With a cold look, he begins to explain the harsh reality of the order. The white-haired youth listens to everything very carefully. Kenneth reveals that in 6 months, 1/3 of the recruits are gone, and it happens either because of monsters or because they break their pacts. The boy wonders when the vice commander got behind him. The guy's speed and coldness were truly terrifying. He thinks that this place was much more dangerous than it seemed. The Order of Knights was not the paradise he had imagined. At this, Kenneth asks if he wants to join without sacrificing anything. The taunt was clear and very direct to the poor rookie. The white-haired youth falls silent and starts to sweat. He didn't have an answer to such a difficult question. At that moment, Fran intervenes and yells for Kenneth to stop. The commander did not like her vice's attitude at all. The boy just glares at her with an unfriendly expression. He didn't seem at all willing to obey her order, but our MC says it's true and he hasn't made a pact yet. A purple aura begins to emanate from his body with great power. His hand glows intensely, and he pushes the vice commander's weapon away, and says the commander took him, and even without an oath. With a smile, he says he got good food and a soft bed, and most importantly, he finally escaped that hell. The boy shouts that he doesn't care about pacts or anything else. His only desire was to protect his new and precious life. He continues, saying he will do whatever it takes to join the Order of Knights. With that, his body is enveloped in a powerful purple aura of pure determination. His eyes glow, and he shouts that he will cling to that place with everything he has. Kenneth is shocked because his divine weapon is being pushed back by the rookie's energy. He struggles to maintain control of his weapon, which glows with a green energy. Seeing the commotion, Fran gets between the two and shouts for them to stop immediately. With a smile, she praises the energy and motivation of the two boys on their first day. But the commander warns that from this moment on, things are going to get serious. The three knights, with their colorful auras, look up, ready for battle, because several red eyes are watching from the shadows of the dark, dense forest. The commander points up and tells them to use all that energy on the job. Without wasting time, one of the monsters leaps from the trees to start the surprise attack. Kenneth attacks one of the creatures, but Fran and our MC are already fighting too. The tail of one of the monkeys is cut off in the middle of the intense confrontation. Our MC breathes a sigh of relief after narrowly dodging a creature's attack. Our MC is completely shocked by a bizarre scene right in front of him, because a disgusting purple liquid is dripping from the tail of one of the monsters in the tree. The substance is so corrosive that it simply melts the tree trunk on the spot. The creature then glares at the group with its red eyes and a glowing tail. Leica shouts that the tree melted, and Kenneth warns him not to touch that stuff under any circumstances. Suddenly, several other monkeys just like that one surround the youth from all sides. One of the tails hits him squarely, and he yells in anger at the surprise attack. His face shows pure hatred as he deals with the pain of the blow he received. Dodging another venomous whip, he complains that this was just cheating. Faced with the chaotic situation, Fran just gives a super proud and happy smile. With that, the commander says goodbye, and says she'll leave the rest to the two of them. She explains that with so many monsters around, there must be a leader nearby. The white-haired woman says she's going to investigate, and Leica desperately asks her to wait. At this, Kenneth draws his two weapons and prepares to fight with everything he's got. The vice commander aims at something with a serious look, and our MC gets scared. Without warning, Kenneth fires, but the target wasn't our MC. The shot grazes past him and hits the creature that was attacking from behind. The monster's head explodes from the impact of the dead-on shot. The creature's body falls lifelessly to the ground as the boy recovers. The vice commander just stares at him in silence after saving him. He then says that if the youth thinks the order is a picnic, he'd better sit back and just watch the fight from afar. Our MC gets angry at the vice commander's words. He won't accept being called useless like that. Repeating the word picnic, he sees another monster coming towards him. Anger takes over the boy with all that taunting. With that, a powerful energy manifests in his hand. He prepares to show his true power to the knight. With a cry of rage, he charges and attacks the creature. His hand transforms into a sharp blade of energy. He shouts with all his might that he needs to join the Order of Knights. His determination explodes along with his overwhelming power. Kenneth just watches him and says that words are worthless. Action is the only thing that really matters to him. Because of this, he says that if the boy is serious, he needs to prove his worth with actions, not with shouts. The vice commander challenges him to show his power in practice. Our MC accepts the challenge with a determined look. From there, the knight charges into the attack with his weapons. He shows off his skill and speed in combat. Our MC doesn't fall behind and also charges forward with everything. His energy blade cuts through the monsters with ease. Kenneth fires several shots at once with his green energy. He clears the path, defeating the creatures with precision. With an area of effect attack, Leica also destroys several enemies. The unlikely duo begins to fight in perfect sync. With a powerful leap, our MC attacks one of the monsters with his blade. His face shows pure determination as he defeats the creature with a precise strike. Soon after, he is surrounded by the bodies of the monsters he just defeated alone. Though tired, the white-haired youth remains alert for the next attack. Meanwhile, Kenneth floats in the air and destroys several creatures with his shots. The scene reveals that the vice commander was dealing with a gigantic horde of monsters. There were hundreds of bizarre creatures ready to attack without any mercy. Faced with the scene, our MC feels frustrated because the power difference is enormous. Suddenly, two more monsters appear and charge to attack the boy from behind. Unintimidated, the white-haired youth creates an even larger sword of flames. With a war cry, he attacks the creatures with all his strength and determination. His eyes show that he will not give up on proving his true worth. He remembers the children but realizes that increasing the flames only tires him out faster. Kenneth's voice echoes, and he mockingly asks if that's all the boy has. The vice commander says that if he's going to rest, he'd better do something useful instead of just standing there. Kenneth throws a capsule and tells the boy to at least find some shade to rest in. Our MC is furious with the taunt and clenches his teeth in pure rage. He thinks that the vice commander hasn't stopped attacking and isn't even tired. Leica asks how he can shoot nonstop, and Kenneth explains that his weapon creates bullets using mana. The white-haired youth remembers that because of his pact, the vice commander can't lie. At this, he realizes their powers work in completely different ways. But even knowing this, he can't just create a weapon out of thin air. So, the boy decides he's going to bet everything on a single, powerful attack. Suddenly, he shoots up into the sky with a flaming and overwhelming energy. Kenneth just watches him and wonders if the rookie has finally given up the fight. He thinks the boy can't adjust or think of another plan of attack. Because of this, he decides he will inform the commander when she returns from her mission. But suddenly he looks up and realizes our MC's true plan, because the white-haired youth launches a giant fire sword with all his strength. Kenneth is completely shocked and speechless at the bizarre and unexpected scene. Our MC says that tricks were never his strong suit anyway. He decides to forget about efficiency and mana cost and go all out at once. The creatures look up, completely terrified by the accumulated power. Seeing the size of the attack, Kenneth moves away to avoid being caught in the explosion. With a shout, the white-haired youth unleashes all his accumulated energy. The giant fire sword descends with full force and hits the ground with absurd strength. With that, an explosion of purple energy destroys the entire clearing in seconds. The ground shatters into several pieces from the force of that power's impact. The monsters are completely vaporized, leaving only dust and debris. From above, the vice commander observes the result of the attack with astonishment. He is shocked by the scene and calls the boy's attitude reckless, because the attack opened a gigantic crater in the middle of the entire forest. Lying on the ground, our MC complains that he's exhausted and can't move anymore. He then asks if the knight saw and boasts about having defeated more monsters. With the remains of the creatures scattered around, he demands that Kenneth acknowledge him now. Kenneth, however, ignores the boy and seriously surveys the surroundings. Our MC is confused and asks what his problem is. The vice commander notices threads of energy coming from the monsters' bodies, and that strange energy was being absorbed by the earth. Suddenly, the ground begins to shake, and he senses the danger. Something very bad was about to happen in that spot. With that, he desperately shouts that it was a trap, and tells our MC to run as fast as he can from there. The ground then explodes with full force, and the two are thrown into the air. The true enemy's trap had finally been sprung. Fallen and without strength, the white-haired youth stares at the hole. He had no way to escape that dangerous situation anymore, because a giant, bizarre creature emerges from the ground with an enormous mouth. That was the demon commanding all the others. With his last bit of energy, our MC uses his flames, and manages to propel himself away from the giant monster's mouth. He quickly grabs Kenneth and saves him from the deadly fall, and realizes that the monkeys were just bait for the real demon. The creature gives a bizarre smile, and the boy complains about the obvious explanation. He had figured out the enemy's whole plan a long time ago. His hand still glows a little, but the energy is almost gone. He no longer has the strength to fight against that great threat. Despair takes over because he used all his strength at once, and now he can no longer fight the giant demon in front of him. Suddenly, the creature's disgusting tongue shoots out of its mouth with full force, and lunges towards the two knights to finally capture them. With no chance to dodge, the tongue wraps around the two boys. They are trapped with crushing force and no escape. With hatred in his eyes, our MC shouts for the monster to let him go, but his strength was no longer enough to escape that grip. Suddenly, they look up and see something falling from the sky. A strange silhouette appears against the bright sunlight. Our MC's face shows pure shock at the scene. He can't believe what's about to happen there, because Commander Fran was sliding down the monster's tongue. And with a smile, she seemed to be having a lot of fun with it. With a mocking tone, she speaks to the giant creature, and says it's very rude to open its mouth like that in front of her. From there, the white-haired woman draws her bizarre weapon. It looked like a mix between a spear and a giant spoon. Her weapon glows with a powerful pink energy. She prepares to deliver a devastating attack on the creature. With a precise strike, she hits the demon's mouth. The force of the impact cuts the creature's tongue in half. The disgusting tongue is split in two by the commander's attack. The monster screams in pain, feeling the deep cut in its mouth. The piece of tongue flies into the air with the two knights. Meanwhile, the commander watches everything from below with her spear. Without wasting time, she throws another weapon towards them. A shining knife ascends with impressive speed. The demon's true body finally emerges from the earth. That bizarre creature had several arms and a horrible appearance. Suddenly, a giant energy slash descends from the heavens. The attack goes with full force towards the creature that emerged. The creature is sliced into several pieces by the powerful blow, and the two boys are finally freed from the monster's tongue. The demon's remains fall to the ground in a disgusting puddle. The threat was finally defeated very quickly. Lying on the ground, the two remain trapped in the piece of tongue. They grumble a bit, feeling the creature's grip. With a stomp, the commander tears the monster's tongue in half, and finally frees the two boys from that disgusting grip. With a smile, she congratulates the two on their good work with the monkeys, and apologizes for taking so long to return. She explains that she sensed the demon's presence nearby, but she didn't think it would show up if she was around. Trapped in that bizarre situation, the two boys just stare at her. They can't believe what they just heard from her. Seeing the scene, the white-haired woman jokes that they become friends, and much faster than she expected would happen. At the joke, the two just grumble angrily. They are still stuck together in that very awkward situation. Soon after, the commander finally helps them get out of there, and the two knights get up, a bit embarrassed by everything. Now free and shirtless, our MC looks at Fran. He had something very important to think about regarding that woman. The commander just watches him with a gentle smile on her face. She seemed very calm after all that commotion, because the boy remembers how she fought against that huge thing and defeated the giant demon without even breaking a sweat. With this, he realizes that this person was on another level. A commander's power was truly impressive. Suddenly, the white-haired woman clasps her hands in prayer. Our MC is confused, not understanding what she was doing. She then explains that this demon was also once human. That's why she always prays after defeating one of them in battle. The warrior reveals that they had the misfortune of being exposed to too much energy, and that's how a human ended up turning into that horrible monster. Hearing the whole story, the white-haired youth just nods. His expression shows that he understood the seriousness of the situation. Suddenly, Kenneth says there's something very strange about this situation, and that he needs to understand what really happened here. He explains that he's never heard of a reservoir of magical energy, let alone a demon this strong near the capital. Fran agrees that it's not impossible, but the whole situation certainly seemed very out of place. Suddenly, the commander notices something falling from the sky. A small stone falls right in front of her and catches her attention. With a terrified face, she screams for the two of them to run. The danger wasn't over yet, and something worse was coming. The boys are confused by the commander's sudden order. They don't understand the reason for so much desperation and panic. Suddenly, a crushing pressure pins the three of them to the ground. They can't move even an inch. The three knights feel the immense force holding them down. They realize they are dealing with a very powerful enemy. A mysterious voice grumbles contemptuously about its creation, and a bizarre hand emerges from the ground, shattering everything around it. The trio of knights turns and is shocked by the scene. A new and terrible threat finally reveals itself to them. Because a giant, hooded figure emerges from the shadows, its presence was evil and much stronger than the demons. The commander stares at the creature and stammers in disbelief. She seemed to know that figure from somewhere in the past. The mysterious being complains that they destroyed its child. Its yellow eyes glow with a deep and terrifying hatred. It continues, saying that humans, with their deceitful faces, are the ugliest and most disgusting creatures in the world. Fran repeats the word creation, and is furious at the revelation, and with her spear in hand, she asks who that being is. With a simple gesture, the mysterious being throws them to the ground. Its voice was calm but charged with terrifying power. The pressure increases even more, and the three knights scream in pain. They can't resist the crushing force of that enemy. Fran screams desperately, feeling the pressure on her body. Our MC can't believe the absurd difference in power. He realizes that even someone as strong as the commander was completely helpless before this new enemy. Even while down, Kenneth draws his weapon and curses the creature. He's not going to surrender so easily to that monster. The hooded being just laughs and calls him a naughty child, and with a simple attack, it destroys the vice commander's weapon. The weapon dissolves into a sinister red smoke. That being's power was truly on another level. It then says it will have to remake them stronger, and a malevolent red energy envelops the entire area. The remains of the defeated demon begin to stir. They merge and form a new, bizarre, and disgusting creature. Small slime creatures join the main body. Our MC watches everything, terrified and not understanding a thing. Lying on the ground, he wonders what that is. The bizarre scene leaves him completely speechless and paralyzed. His eyes widen with the pure horror of the situation. He doesn't know what the heck is happening in that place. Suddenly, the ground shatters and a new creature emerges. It was the fusion of all the monsters defeated before. The hooded being wonders what will happen now, and the creature with the exposed brain stares at the knights. Without a second thought, the monster grabs the commander. It holds her by the chin with brutal and terrifying force. The bizarre creature then prepares to devour the commander with its disgusting brain. One of the tentacles covers Fran's mouth and she struggles, unable to escape. Suddenly, the monster's brain opens, revealing a mouth full of sharp teeth. With that, the creature prepares to finally devour the commander without any mercy. Lying on the ground, our MC watches the scene, completely paralyzed and powerless. His eyes widen in pure desperation, seeing the commander about to be defeated. He can't believe that the kind Commander Fran is going to be taken out right in front of him. At that moment, he remembers her saying her goal was for everyone to return safely, and he also recalls how the white-haired woman said she had high hopes for him. From there, the youth shouts to stop, and an explosion of energy erupts from the ground with full force. The hooded figure and the other knights are shocked by the boy's sudden power, because our MC unleashes an overwhelming fury in his new and powerful transformation. Kenneth is speechless and can't believe the scene he's seeing right in front of him. With that, the white-haired youth creates a sphere of purple, flaming energy in his hand, and without hesitation, he fires a powerful attack with all the strength accumulated in the blow. The energy beam hits the bizarre creature head on and blows it to smithereens. With that, Commander Fran is freed and is shocked by the rookie's power. But after the attack, our MC collapses, exhausted and panting on the ground. His face shows the extreme pain and fatigue from using so much power at once. With no strength left, he returns to his normal form, completely drained. The hooded figure watches everything in silence, seeming very interested in the boy. On his knees, our MC can no longer move at all. The mysterious being just lets out a ho, analyzing the white-haired youth. He praises the boy for being able to move in his powerful gravity field, and with a gesture, he says there's something even more interesting about the boy, because the flame he used before does not belong to this world at all. Finding it all very interesting, the mysterious being takes a step towards him. Suddenly, he appears in front of the youth and grabs his face with great force. Our MC's eyes widen with the pure terror of that situation. The hooded being stares into the boy's eye, and seems to be analyzing something within him. With a smile, he says he understands, and that the boy made a pact with a god from another world. But suddenly he uses his power and our MC screams in pain from the pressure. The hooded figure can't believe the youth was capable of offering something like that. His sinister smile shows that he was shocked by what he saw inside the boy. The creature's eye widens in pure astonishment at the revelation about the pact. Suddenly, a beam of purple energy pierces the mysterious being's chest with full force. He doesn't understand where the attack came from, and our MC appears to fight. With great anger, the white-haired youth shouts that the guy has been way too noisy. From there, he grabs the hooded figure and tears it in half with his strength. With that, an explosion of purple energy hits the being head on and sends it flying. The creature's body falls lifelessly to the ground after being defeated by the boy. Soon after, MC jumps back, completely exhausted by the power. He then passes out and falls face first onto the ground with no energy left. The commander and vice commander watch the scene, panting and not understanding. Seeing the two fallen, Kenneth asks if the rookie really defeated that being. Commander Fran is panting and completely shocked by what just happened. The hooded figure's body begins to disintegrate on the ground as if it were dust. Angrily, the white-haired woman approaches and lifts the hood of the fallen enemy. Her eyes widen in pure shock, because she can't believe what she's seeing there. Because the body was actually a wooden doll covered in strange seals. She realizes that the real enemy was controlling it all from afar. Kenneth then calls out to our MC, who remains unconscious on the ground, not moving. Worried, the commander kneels beside the boy to see if he was okay. She says it's alright, and that the white-haired youth just passed out from exhaustion. With a serious look, the white-haired woman stares at the destroyed wooden doll. She thinks that guy was creating demons with impressive power, and for a human to be capable of something like that, his level was absurd. Suddenly it clicks, and the commander is shocked by a frightening possibility. With that, she shouts the name of the master of magic, the powerful ruler Tempest. The scene then takes us to a peaceful city called Tempestashi. The scene then shifts to a house, and a wooden door opens with a creak. A little girl in a witch's hat enters and asks if he was sleeping again. Because a white-haired man was lying on the couch, sleeping peacefully. He grumbles a bit and wakes up with a book covering his entire face. The girl complains about him lazing around, and he apologizes without getting up. The man then sits up and says he was having a very interesting dream. His face shows a calm smile but with a very mysterious and sinister air. He says he found something good, and the girl calls him a clumsy adult for it. Soon after, he picks up a cup of tea, and she complains about his laziness again. The white-haired man just enjoys his tea with a very calm smile. Sitting with the girl, he agrees that the sky that day was very beautiful. Back in the forest, the sky seems to shatter, and it looks like something fun is about to happen. Kenneth carries our MC and tells him to hang in there because they're almost there. The white-haired youth remains unconscious with some injuries on his face. In his mind, the white-haired man remembers the bizarre fight with our MC. The The white-haired man remembers the boy's pact and the bubbling purple chalice. With that, the scene takes us to the grand headquarters of the Order of Knights. There, the commanders discuss the youth having a contract with a god from another world. In the underground room, everyone stares at the unconscious boy with very suspicious looks. Our MC remains out cold while his fate is decided by everyone there. Grift, the commander of the 4th Division, says that this goes against the foundation of the order. But Jack, the vice commander of the 6th Division, says he seems to be quite useful. After all, the boy created a giant and powerful divine weapon during the last battle. Chiron defends him, saying you can't trust the words of an unknown man. However, Gavin thinks the risk is too great and doesn't want uncertain elements in the organization. For the vice commander, they do nothing but sell the purest chaos. His gaze shows all his contempt and suspicion of the white-haired youth. Faced with the discussion, Arthur, the commander general, just watches everything in silence. The red-haired woman then prepares to give her final word on the matter. With that, she calls Fran and asks for her opinion since she saw everything up close on the mission. Fran has a worried expression as she prepares to answer. She explains that neither she nor Kenneth could move in front of the enemy. The white-haired woman states that if it weren't for him, they all would have perished. Even so, the commander clasps her hands and says there's a big but, because the boy's transformation seemed completely uncontrolled and wild. She adds that he has no control over his own overwhelming power. With a worried look, Fran continues her report to the other leaders. The commander explains that he always passes out after using his power. At this, Gavin questions whether that can be called control. The white-haired woman is at a loss for what to say to her colleague. Commander Arthur listens to everything attentively and seems to understand the situation. She says they need to know if he can control his power to stay in the order. The other commanders just watch the discussion very carefully. Everyone there seems to agree with the commander general's assessment. Because of this, Arthur turns and asks what would convince Gavin. With a serious look, Gavin thinks for a moment and finally makes his decision. He says the boy will have to pass the trial of the sheltered flame. Fran and Jack are completely shocked by the vice commander's proposal. Arthur decides the test will happen and says they are sending the boy to heck. With a smile, the commander asks Jack to heal him up very well for the test. Our MC then sleeps soundly while recovering from his injuries. In his dreams, he remembers the enemy's voice talking about his pact with a god. The voice angrily repeats that he made a pact with a god from another world, and that to obtain that power, he offered something unbelievable in return. With disgust, the mysterious being calls him disgusting and asks what on earth he is. Laika then wakes up screaming desperately for the voice in his head to finally shut up. He finds himself in a room and notices a man reading a book beside him. The black-haired man then turns and says the boy finally woke up. He explains they used healing techniques and asks how long he was planning to sleep. Our MC asks about the enemy, and the man calms him down, saying the danger is past. The black-haired man stammers a bit before starting to speak. Our MC is confused by the reaction and asks what's wrong. With that, the boy thanks him and reveals he was worried because he wasn't waking up. At this revelation, Laika is completely shocked and speechless. He then asks if the vice commander was really worried, and the boy shouts, "Wes." With a smile, our MC realizes the knight really can't lie. Kenneth gets all flustered by the comment and just mumbles something. He then thanks him once more and starts to leave the youth's room, but suddenly the room door flies open, interrupting his exit. The two boys turn and are surprised by the unexpected visit, because the one entering the room is Kieran, the commander of the 9th Division. He apologizes for the intrusion and announces that a decision has been made about his future. Our MC repeats the part about his future and Kieran nods. With a serious look, he reveals it has been decided that the boy will undergo the trial of the flame. The news shocks even Kenneth, who shouts in surprise, not believing it. Our MC repeats the word trial, not understanding what it means. With that, Kenneth shouts that it's reckless because the boy is a complete rookie. But Kieran interrupts him and says he is the official administrator of that test. Confused, Laika asks if passing the test makes him an official member of the order. The vice commander calls him an idiot and explains that the test is to become a vice commander. His face shows pure anger as he says the youth only received divine magic. Because of this, he shouts that this is practically an execution for the boy. The white-haired youth just stares at him in silence, processing it all. Chiron then explains that 1/3 of those who fail the test end up going mad. And with a cold look, he warns that if you don't go mad, the other outcome is being gone for good. The commander tells him to only accept if he's prepared for the worst. At this, Kenneth turns worriedly and calls our MC's name. The boy sits up in bed and says he doesn't really understand difficult things. With a smile, he says that this is the only place he has in the world now. Therefore, he will risk his life and give it his all to protect his new home. 5 days pass and the day of the boy's great trial finally arrives. Kieran then explains that the test imposed on the youth consists of 2 parts. The first part is very simple, and he just needs to survive for 3 days. Our MC curiously asks what the second part of the test would be. The commander just points and says it's for him to get this thing, because in the man's hand was just a candle, and the boy is confused. With that, Kieran asks him to put his power into the object, and the candle glows. Suddenly, the candle explodes into a giant flame, and our MC is startled. The commander explains that he needs to protect the flame for 3 whole days. It finally clicks, and the white-haired youth is shocked by the mission. Kieran confirms and warns that this flame will attract several monsters to him. The boy's face shows pure fear of the danger he will face. With a serious look, the commander just asks him not to get himself taken out. And so, the trial of the sheltered flame finally begins for the youth. Alone in the darkness, he holds the candle and prepares for whatever comes. Inside the dark cave, our MC moves forward with great caution. He feels a strange and heavy energy throughout the place. Holding the candle firmly, he continues his path through the darkness. The white-haired youth knows that danger can appear at any moment. Suddenly, he finds it hard to breathe and clutches his chest tightly. The boy realizes that this is the so-called magical essence of the place. He remembers that this cave has a very high concentration of energy. It was a much more dangerous location than others in that region. Because of this, the number of monsters there was ridiculously higher. It was the perfect place for a brutal survival test. The commander then reinforces that he was given 2 clear tasks, and the boy needed to complete both to finally pass the test. The first was simply to survive for 3 whole days, in a place where monsters appear more frequently than in other regions. The second task reveals itself when a bizarre monster appears by surprise. A giant, disgusting creature emerges for the first attack. Unshaken, our MC faces the threat with determination. His eyes show that he will not back down from the fight at all. The creature reveals itself, and he remembers the second rule of the test. He needs to ensure the candle flame never goes out. Simply letting the flame go out was not an option for him. The white-haired youth needed to protect the light at all costs. And if the candle burned out completely, he would also fail the test. Dodging the creature, he prepares for a counterattack. With that, he creates a cross-shaped energy blade. His purple power shines brightly in the darkness of the cave. With a war cry, he attacks the creature with all his strength. The energy blow goes with full force towards the bizarre monster. The creature is split in half by the boy's powerful attack, and its pieces fall lifelessly to the ground shortly after. After defeating the first monster, the boy turns and notices something strange. He remembers that the candle burns using his own power as fuel. At this, he sits down and tries to reduce the flame to conserve his energy. With his eyes closed, he concentrates and manages to lessen the fire's intensity. The youth then continues walking and remembers that a bell will ring in 3 days. His expression shows he has no idea what that means. Suddenly, several bizarre monsters appear and surround him from all sides. A giant creature stares at him, drooling and preparing for a brutal attack. Though tense, he remembers that if he succeeds, he will be an official member of the order. But if he doesn't, he will surely perish amidst that horde of monsters. The creatures start appearing from everywhere, even on the walls. The situation gets even worse when he falls into a lake full of aquatic monsters. Far away, Kieran and Kenneth watch the test through a water mirror. The vice commander keeps his head down, clearly worried about the rookie. His gaze shows all his anguish seeing the boy's impossible situation. Kieran thinks that, as he imagined, this is impossible for the boy and the test is too soon for him. He reflects that the commander only made this decision because some members wouldn't be satisfied. One of those members was Gavin, the vice commander of the 1st Division, with his stern gaze. Seeing the scene in the water mirror, the commander says a very thoughtful however. His expression changes slightly, and he seems to reconsider his opinion of the young rookie. So, he says he has a feeling the boy will succeed, and Kenneth is surprised. Back in the cave, our MC fights with all his might against the monsters at high speed. His face shows the effort, but he will not give up on passing that test no matter what. He realizes that if he fights cautiously for 3 days, he'll just get cornered by the monsters. Because of this, an idea strikes and his eyes glow with a powerful purple energy. With a new plan, he increases the candle's flame, using even more of his power. Soon after, he uses the candle like a flamethrower and unleashes incredible power. The blast of fire illuminates the entire tunnel and burns everything in its path. One of the nearby creatures turns, completely surprised by the attack. With that, all the other monsters in the cave are drawn by the large flame. His idea is to make the candle flame huge to attract all the monsters to him. With that, he shouts that he will finish them all at once with his power. At this, the giant creatures charge with full force towards the white-haired youth. The boy then unleashes an explosion of energy with a deafening scream. One of the monsters is hit head-on and begins to disintegrate from the power. The white-haired youth stands in the middle of the explosion that destroys everything around him. The overwhelming purple energy spreads throughout the entire cave in seconds. The monsters are completely destroyed and turned into mere pieces in the air. As a result, he is left alone in a giant superheated crater. With a smile, he asks what they thought of his demonstration of power. Far away, Kenneth is shocked while Kieran watches everything attentively. The vice commander wonders if he plans to defeat them all and spend the rest of the time there. Back in the cave, our MC stares into the void, completely exhausted, but Kieran smiles as he seems impressed with the boy's attitude. He then admits that if the youth pulls this off, it will be something quite incredible. But suddenly, Kieran's expression changes and he notices something very strange. He stands up, startled, and shouts for them to wait because something is very wrong. Because the commander says that things shouldn't be there at all. Lying on the ground, our MC passes out, and Kieran can't believe what he's seeing. Far away, Gavin, the man who suggested the test, watches everything with a smile. At this, Kieran becomes furious and curses the vice commander for his trap. Back in the cave, the panting youth holds the candle, which is already halfway gone. He thinks that now he just needs to reduce the flame and survive for 3 days. But suddenly, the boy senses a strange presence approaching him. With that, a beam of red energy grazes past his face with full force. The attack explodes on the wall, and the white-haired youth turns around, surprised. His expression shows pure shock at the new and unexpected threat, because a giant mechanical leg stumps right in front of him with great force. In the darkness, a robotic creature with a red eye emerges to fight. It was a 6-armed golem, and each of them held a sharp sword. Our MC stares at the golem and wonders what on earth that thing is. Furious, Kieran shouts that there's no mistake and recognizes the creature instantly. He reveals that it's a berserk, and the golem's eye glows with power. The robot fires another beam, and the white-haired youth narrowly dodges it. The narration explains that this was an anti-monster weapon developed by the Order. Kieran grabs a phone and furiously calls Gavin, asking what he thinks he's doing. Gavin, however, just calls him ridiculous with a mocking tone. He explains he was just testing a prototype, and the forest was convenient. The vice commander adds that the boy's cave just happened to be nearby. Kieran becomes even more furious and asks if he expects him to believe that. With a serious tone, Gavin warns him not to think about helping the white-haired youth, because in the test, he needs to endure every hardship and injustice that comes his way. If the boy can't take it, he'll fail, and they don't need a kid like him. At the warning, Kieran clenches his teeth with great anger and frustration. On the other end of the line, Gavin hangs up the phone and gives a sinister smile. Suddenly, someone knocks on Vice Commander Gavin's office door. With that, Fran enters the office dressed as a maid, bringing tea. He asks why a division head stoops to playing servant, but she says it's just a hobby. Gavin replies that he doesn't want sugar and drinks his tea peacefully. With a smile, the commander comments that he seems to be in a good mood. The vice commander confirms that he is not in a bad mood as he sips his tea. His gaze shows that he is very satisfied with the progress of the test. On his desk, a magic mirror shows the fight, and he says the fewer worries, the better. In the cave, a small monster with a giant eye watches the fight from afar. The golem fires 2 powerful energy beams towards RMC. With an impressive leap, the white-haired youth narrowly dodges the attack. Seeing he has no choice, he creates a sphere of purple energy in his hand. Without wasting time, he shouts and launches his power with all his might towards the robot. The attack hits squarely, and the boy asks what the golem thought of that. But suddenly he notices something, and his face shows pure shock at the scene, because the golem remains standing without a single scratch and emits a robotic sound. Our MC is shocked and wonders why his attack didn't work. His gaze shows pure tension as he realizes the enemy is much stronger. Suddenly, the candle flame begins to flicker, and he knows his power is running out. The robot then charges with its 6 swords, and the boy shouts to be careful. His face shows determination as he prepares for the confrontation. With a grunt, he dodges another energy beam with difficulty. The golem's vision shows a targeting system locked onto the white-haired youth. The boy thinks he can't waste any more of the candle, and that using fire exhausts him. He knows that even if he attacks with the flames, there's a high chance it won't work. Dodging another blow, he wonders what on earth he should do now. With a leap, he continues to evade while trying to think of a plan. Fallen and panting, RMC is already at his energy limit. The golem just watches him from above, waiting for the moment for the final attack. With that, the robotic creature's eye glows, preparing for another shot. In the robot's sights, RMC thinks that it must have some weakness. He stares at the machine, and the golem just stares back, not moving. The two remain in a tense standoff in the middle of the destroyed cave. With this, he finds it strange and notices the robot is no longer attacking. To test his theory, the white-haired youth takes a step to the side, and at the same moment the golem fires a beam, and he dodges it by a hair's breadth. The powerful attack kicks up a cloud of dust and debris everywhere. At that moment it clicks, and he finally understands the enemy's pattern. Because the robot only attacks when he moves, detecting his movements. Knowing this, The boy comes up with a plan and starts running with all his might. He runs in a straight line towards the golem to test his crazy theory. The machine then fires several beams at once, trying to hit him, but the white-haired youth doesn't stop and prepares a counter-attack in mid-air. With a leap, he throws himself to the side and launches his power behind him. The golem's eye turns and aims at the ball of energy he threw. With his plan, the energy ball attracts the golem's beam, which turns against the machine itself. At this, the robot begins to fall apart, and its arms are cut off by its own power. Our MC celebrates because his idea of making the enemy destroy itself worked perfectly. Seizing the chance, he charges forward with everything and shouts for the scumbag to finally go down. With a powerful punch, he hits the golem's head, and a large explosion occurs. The purple energy spreads and completely destroys the robotic creature's core. From inside the golem, he tears out a bunch of wires and cables with all his strength. He holds the robot's core with a victorious look as he destroys it completely. The golem's head makes one last strange sound before finally shutting down for good. Before the defeated enemy, our MC remains standing, holding the lit candle. The golem's remains disintegrate as he looks at the wires he tore from the machine. With his face injured and tired, he just says it's okay and seems satisfied. His reflection then appears in a magic mirror that was watching the entire fight from afar. That mirror belonged to Gavin, who followed the entire test very closely. His face shows pure anger and shock, because his plan to get rid of the rookie failed. Fran praises the boy, saying he was impressive while Gavin watches in silence. But the vice commander says the weapon needs to be refined and asks for the sugar for his tea. With that, he drops several sugar cubes into the cup and stirs it vigorously. From there, the man drinks the super sweet tea, and the commander just smiles beside him. Gavin then dismisses her, saying a division head shouldn't be so idle. At this, the commander leaves, leaving him alone with his dark thoughts. He thinks that this was just insurance to make sure the boy wouldn't pass the test. Because for him, that cave won't let the white-haired youth get out alive so easily. His gaze shows pure hatred as he contemptuously calls our MC a brat. Back in the cave, the boy is completely exhausted and panting on the dark floor. His eyes show the tension, and he wonders if the test bell hasn't rung yet. He realizes the candle is almost out and that he has also reached his energy limit. Suddenly, he notices something strange and is confused by a movement in the darkness. He stares at the monster's remains and wonders if the creature's flesh just moved. With that, one of the pieces of flesh begins to move and bubble in a very bizarre way. He realizes it wasn't his imagination and that the monster's flesh is approaching. The creature's pieces begin to slowly merge on the dark cave floor. Before his eyes, the remains unite and form a new, bizarre, and disgusting creature. To his astonishment, all the monsters he defeated begin to regenerate and surround him. He despairs and realizes it's because of the high concentration of magical energy in the place. Suddenly, a bell sound echoes throughout the cave, and the boy is surprised by the noise. With that, he remembers that as long as the candle is lit, he will live until the bell rings. From there, he starts running desperately to try to get out of that horrible place. His determined gaze shows that he will not give up on surviving no matter what. But a gigantic horde of monsters with glowing eyes appears to block his path. With nowhere to go, he runs from the creatures while protecting the small candle flame. The white-haired youth knows that if a monster touches the flame, it will go out. The monsters corner him, leaving him with no escape route. Even surrounded, he shouts to hang in there, because he will not surrender under any circumstances. His expression shows all his willpower not to let the flame go out. With that, the bizarre creatures charge with full force towards our MC. But suddenly he spots a light and realizes it's the cave exit. With no time to dodge, one of the monsters hits him squarely with a brutal attack. Though injured, the white-haired youth clenches his teeth and keeps moving forward. He runs with all his remaining strength towards the light of the exit. His hand reaches out, and he is just one step away from finally escaping. But the monsters catch up to him and prepare for the final attack right behind him. Suddenly, a mysterious voice shouts for him to get down as fast as he can. With that, a blade of blue energy passes over him and hits the monsters. Lying on the ground, he sees a giant metal boot right in front of him, because Kieran was there and announces that the test time has finally run out. From there, the commander pulls him out of the cave with great force. Once outside, he stares at the candle and wonders if it's all over. With no strength left, he passes out and collapses on the ground, completely exhausted. But Kieran catches him, and the boy groans in pain from his injuries. With a relieved look, Kieran confirms that yes, the test is finally over. And with a hug, he congratulates him and says the boy held up very well. Our MC then completely passes out exhausted after all that. But suddenly, his eyes open in pure shock at a new vision. Because he sees himself sitting on a throne in a dark and mysterious chamber. A voice explains that this place was the ceremonial chamber of the Order. Before him stood Commander Arthur in a very fancy formal uniform. The red-haired woman just stares at him with a confident smile on her face. All the leaders of the Order of Knights were gathered around him. She then announces that from that moment on, the rite of passage begins. To prove their trust in the rookie, everyone will reveal their vows and weapons there. With that, the tip of a spear slams into the ground with a metallic sound. Kieran introduces himself and reveals his vow was to never have a family. Soon after, another different weapon touches the ground with a soft glow. Fran then introduces herself and says her vow was to abdicate food for life. Next comes Kenneth with his weapon, and he introduces himself as the Vice Commander of the 2nd Division. The boy reveals that his vow was to never tell a lie for the rest of his life. Soon after, Grift, the commander of the 4th Division, says his oath was to dedicate his right arm to God. Next is Jack, the Vice Commander of the 6th Division, and his bizarre vow was to remain a virgin forever. Our MC watches all of this completely shocked and not understanding their sacrifices. His expression shows that he is still processing all those bizarre oaths. With that, Gavin, the Vice Commander of the Order, appears and says his vow was to never sleep again. With a serious look, he adds that his shield serves a very important purpose, because he will never forgive those who dare to betray the Order of Knights. Our MC listens to everything with a serious and concentrated expression. Suddenly, a voice calls him, and Arthur, the Commander General of the Order, reveals herself to him. With her sword in hand, she prepares to reveal her own powerful oath. Before everyone, she raises her weapon and states what her sacred vow to the Order was. The white-haired youth stares at her, not believing what she was about to say. With a confident smile, she reveals her vow was to renounce her own gender. Arthur turns to the new recruit, Leica, and asks him to reveal his weapons and his oath. With a serious look, the commander explains that this would be a great sign of trust from the Order. At this, the other knights watch attentively, waiting for the youth's response. Our MC becomes completely flustered and stammers, not knowing what to say to them. With his head down, he starts to sweat because he doesn't remember his own oath. From there, he clenches his fist tightly, and a powerful energy leaks from his body. Suddenly, an explosion of purple power engulfs the hall, surprising everyone. With that, our MC transforms once again with his long hair and glowing marks. The other knights are shocked, and Gavin can't believe the rookie's display of power. The energy then dissipates and he returns to his normal form, staring at the commander, confused. Before everyone, he introduces himself as Leica and prepares to reveal his oath. A tear of blood runs down his face, and he tries to remember but can't. So, he stands up from the throne and admits the truth, saying he simply doesn't know. Looking at his hands, the boy becomes frustrated because he doesn't understand how he gained so much power. A shadowy figure appears in his mind, and a voice says he gave up something important. The commander stares at him in silence for a moment and seems to think. But the youth shouts that he will become stronger than all of them to earn their trust. He doesn't want to see anyone else get hurt and wants to save everyone before it's too late. At this speech, other knights like Fran and Kieran look at him with admiration. Our MC adds that to protect the flame of life, he needs strength. With that, Arthur raises her sword and says she accepts his determination as proof of trust. The boy is completely speechless at the commander's unexpected response. With a smile, she finally accepts him and welcomes him to the Holy Order of Knights. The white-haired youth can't believe he has finally achieved his lifelong dream. Kenneth and the other knights celebrate and applaud the decision to accept the new recruit. With that, our MC turns his back and celebrates with great happiness and emotion. His eyes sparkle because he has finally found a place to call his own in the world. The ceremony then ends, and the commander withdraws from the main hall with a smile. But from afar, Gavin watches her with contempt for accepting someone who doesn't even know his vow. The vice commander glares at the situation with hatred, and his name is revealed to the boy. The commander turns and reminds Gavin that he was the one who proposed the condition, and that being worthy was simply passing the trial he himself created. She continues, saying that admitting not knowing one's own vow is already risking one's life. Thus, that was more than enough proof of trust. But the vice commander shouts that the problem is the boy's irregularity. He asks what will happen if that power endangers the order. Calmly, the red-haired woman says he worries too much, because the boy's flame grows stronger the closer he gets to being wiped out. With a smile, she adds that his power will surely become a strength for all of them in the future. At this response, Gavin is completely shocked and speechless. He can't believe the commander general's blind trust. The scene then shifts to a large train traveling through a green landscape. A voice announces that their destination is West Central Street. Inside the train, an employee announces that the journey will last about 2 hours, and asks all passengers to relax and enjoy the ride. From there, we are taken to the knight's reserved car, and there are MC Kenneth and Jack resting a bit. The white-haired youth has a huge smile on his face. He seems very happy with his new uniform and his new life in the Order. In his thoughts, he celebrates joining the Order, and says his days of suffering and humiliation are finally over. With his hands behind his head, our MC relaxes and thinks his life will be pretty easy now. Kenneth just watches him with a bored expression. Suddenly, a young woman approaches with a tray full of food. She says she brought a gift for the knights, and the boy gets excited. The youth takes the food but soon worries about how he will pay. However, the woman says he doesn't have to, as it was a special gift. Our MC is impressed by the woman's kindness. He thinks being a knight is amazing for getting free stuff. But Jack warns him not to think it's free. As he eats, he explains that they pay in another way. With a knock on the table, he prepares for the revelation. The sound echoes through the car, creating a tense atmosphere. Because Vice Commander Jack reveals that they pay with their own lives. Our MC is shocked and repeats the words "our lives," not understanding. The knight explains that's why people respect them and expect them to always protect them in return. At this explanation, the white-haired youth understands the responsibility, and without wasting time, he starts to devour the food. He says that after joining the order, he can't hesitate. Seeing the scene, Jack laughs and calls him a very amusing pup. Changing the subject, Kenneth asks the reason for the trip. He finds it strange that they are heading to Jack's jurisdiction. With a smile, the vice commander of the 6th Division just confirms. He reveals that monster activity in the West has increased significantly. Because of this, they ended up requesting reinforcements. Looking at the crowded car, Kenneth is surprised by the number, but Jack explains that most are rookies or support staff. Our MC agrees that makes sense, but suddenly he turns and looks at Kenneth with a question. The white-haired youth asks why he is there, and Kenneth shouts furiously, saying he wasn't just goofing off. He reveals that Fran sent him to keep an eye on the rookie. Jack laughs, because he knows his colleague can't lie. Hearing the whole conversation, our MC gets embarrassed. He didn't expect to receive such special treatment. Our MC then gets Jack's attention to ask a question. The vice commander just looks at him, waiting for the rookie's query. The white-haired youth asks if the vow to be a virgin really counts. Kenneth, beside him, chokes on the completely out-of-line question. Jack yells at the boy for the bold and disrespectful question, but our MC defends himself, saying he's been curious since the ceremony. With a laugh, the knight says that's the thinking of a pup, and that God wouldn't accept the same sacrificial offer from him. He explains that the value of virginity is different for someone who has never loved. For the vice commander, what really matters is the value of the sacrifice. Our MC seems to finally understand the whole logic of the situation. Jack concludes that what matters is how precious what you offer is. Kenneth then uses Commander Fran as a good example for the rookie. After all, she vowed to give up food for the rest of her life. He explains that for her, food meant something much deeper. It wasn't just about the need to eat to live. At this revelation, the white-haired youth becomes very thoughtful. He begins to understand the depth of each knight's vows. The image of Commander Arthur then comes to his mind with her vow. He wonders about the sacrifice of giving up one's own gender. Jack and Kenneth exchange a look, and the vice commander continues the explanation. He had something more to say about the powerful commander general. With a serious tone, Kenneth reveals that the commander is a true princess. Our MC is completely confused by the revelation. The vice commander then explains that the leader of the order is always chosen, and they must be a member of the kingdom's royal family. He reveals that the previous commander was her half-brother, and after he was gone, the woman inherited the important position in the order. Having been spoiled her whole life as a true princess, that vow to renounce her gender was a huge sacrifice for her. Our MC becomes thoughtful with the explanation about the commander. He finally understands the weight of each knight's sacrifices. With this, he wonders if that's how she got so much power. The red-haired woman's sacrifice was truly on another level. Suddenly, Kenneth grabs the boy's face with great force. The white-haired youth complains in pain, not understanding the attack. The vice commander warns him not to meddle out of pure curiosity, because a vow is something very personal and deep for each of them. Seeing the scene, Jack explains that if they find him worthy, they will tell him themselves. And that's how things work within the Order of Knights. Soon after, the car door opens with a loud creak. A new figure was about to enter the compartment. A man in uniform bows and apologizes for the intrusion. His presence was very formal and a bit strange for the situation. He thanks the honorable knights for traveling with them today. And the trio remains in the same position as before, not moving. The young woman from before introduces herself as the conductor of that train. Her name was Doga, and she was still holding the tray of food. Upon hearing her own name, the girl's face changes slightly. Something seemed very strange about the whole situation. The man in uniform stares at the young woman with a very odd look. He seems to recognize her, but in a very sinister and frightening way. His face then reveals itself with a red mark and a glowing eye. He asks who she is with a voice of pure evil and hatred. Without a second thought, the creature charges forward to attack. Jack senses the danger instantly and prepares for the fight. Our two MCs also feel the enemy's evil energy, and are completely frozen by the monster's surprise attack. With a shout, Jack grabs the two and shatters the train floor with force. He throws them away to save them from the demon's attack. The scene descends into chaos and the car floor is completely destroyed. Our MC stares at the bizarre spikes, not believing what he sees. At this, the train conductor reveals himself amidst the destruction, and from his body emerge several sharp and terrifying tentacles. With that, the entire car becomes a scene of pure horror, and the other passengers were taken down by the demon spikes. Laika is completely shocked by the scene of carnage. He can't process what just happened in there, because the other rookie knights were hit head-on. They didn't stand a chance against that surprise attack. One of the young knights struggles to free himself from the spikes, but the pain was so intense he could barely move from his spot. From there, the boy's body begins to undergo a transformation, and he screams in pain, turning into a bizarre, bluish creature. Soon after, the monster reveals itself completely in the middle of the car. Our MC then prepares to fight against the threat. Even so, the white-haired youth asks if he's okay. He still had hopes of saving his former knight colleague. Seeing the scene, Kenneth turns with a very serious expression. He needed to warn the rookie of the great danger he was in. Because of this, the vice commander calls him an idiot without thinking, and shouts for him to stay back and not approach the monster. But it was too late, and the creature grabs our MC from behind. The boy is paralyzed, with no time to react to the attack. Next, the monster attacks him with a giant purple tentacle. The blow goes with full force towards the white-haired youth. His face shows pure shock, and he doesn't understand what happened. The surprise attack caught him completely off guard in the car. Faced with the situation, a shadowy hand appears in front of everything, and our MC is thrown away by the force of the blow. With that, Jack screams desperately and throws himself in front to protect the boy from the attack. His face shows pure shock, and he can't believe the knight is turning into a demon. The creature then reveals itself completely with a blue body and bizarre tentacles on its head. Seeing the scene, the headless conductor confirms that the knight was right all along. He then introduces himself as Doga and reveals that he serves the powerful Lord Tempest, the mage. With a sinister smile, he warns that anyone who stands in his master's way will meet a tragic end. Faced with the threat, Jack clenches his teeth with great anger and prepares for battle. Kenneth and our MC also face the enemy with looks full of determination. The vice commander realizes that this power is the same that created demons in the past. And if so, the man in front of them can only be the legendary and feared mage. It finally clicks, and the boy is completely shocked by the revelation. Even with his injured hand, our MC gives a smile and seems ready to fight. Suddenly, another of the transformed knights charges to attack the white-haired youth. But Kenneth fires his weapon and hits the creature to protect his comrade. With his weapon in hand, the vice commander prepares to fight with everything he has. Kenneth points his weapon and aims directly at the enemy's head without hesitation. With that, the shot hits squarely and the man's head explodes in a green light. But the enemy's body remains standing and Jack shouts for his comrades. From there, he unleashes a golden energy and our MC responds to the call. Thus, a small fairy emerges from his power, and the technique is called Fairy's Tear. Jack says he's counting on her, and the little fairy flies towards Laika to heal him. The creature grabs the boy's injured arm and says it can heal anything. The white-haired youth clenches his teeth in pain as his arm is healed. An intense golden light envelops the wound, and the healing begins to take effect. The little fairy says her job is done and that the pawn was no longer useful. Our MC is shocked to see that his hand has been completely healed. He stares at his own hand, not believing it, as a strange sound echoes. Doger observes the scene and wonders if that was the famous divine art. Lying on the ground, he thinks that the members of the order are very skilled. But the man's body gets up and reveals a bizarre brain in his neck. Doga's voice echoes, thinking about the knight's abilities. He shows the fatal wound of one of the order's members. With a sinister smile, he laments that they will be defeated, and the worst part is, it will be by one of their own comrades. From there, an explosion of red energy engulfs the car, and the man calls the whole situation a great tragedy. At this, our trio of heroes faces the threat with great anger. They will not let their comrades act like monsters. With that, the fight resumes, with the three of them attacking with everything. The speed of the blows was impressive in the middle of the car. Jack realizes the monster is very fast and is surprised. He didn't expect the creature to be so strong, because by becoming a demon, its abilities were enhanced. The transformation made it much more powerful and dangerous. Far away, Doga just watches the fight with a smile. He warns that if they don't stop the monster somehow, the civilians in the other cars will also end up involved, and the other monsters advance to attack the people. But our MC grabs the hand of one of the creatures. He will not let the monster advance to the next car. With that, he shouts for the creature to stop, because he is from the order. He tries to make the former knight remember who he was. The monster just roars with anger, not listening to the boy, who continues to shout that he shouldn't attack normal people. Desperate, the white-haired youth shouts for him to wake up. He wants his former colleague to snap out of that evil trance. Suddenly, a knife hits one of the monsters in the eye. The creature screams in pain from the unexpected surprise attack. Our MC is shocked by the scene, and a shadowy hand appears, and several spheres of purple energy float near his face. Jack explains that a human who turns into a demon can never go back to normal. He continues, saying the order exists to protect people, and that the boy should have learned that in the trial of the sheltered flame, because to protect everyone, they must sacrifice their comrades. The vice commander stares at the rookie with a serious and challenging look, and says that if he can't do it, he'd better get out of there right now. Our MC is shocked by his superior's harsh words. With that, Kenneth says they'll handle things and tells him to focus. The white-haired youth clenches his teeth with anger and frustration. He then spots a scared little girl huddled in the corner of the car. Without a second thought, the boy grabs her and pulls her out of danger. With that, he takes her to the other cars to leave her in safety. From there, he begins to evacuate the other passengers from the train. He screams desperately for everyone to run to the safer cars. The civilians are terrified by the news and can't believe the danger. Our MC shouts for everyone to hurry and get out of there. The civilians run desperately through the train car in a panic. People run for their lives without looking back. The situation inside that train was complete and utter chaos. With that, the white-haired youth continues to shout for everyone to go quickly. He needed to make sure no one was left behind in the car. But the boy notices a family that can't move from their spot. The woman wonders what they should do in that situation. The children cry in fear, and the mother is completely paralyzed. Terror had taken hold of all of them in that moment of desperation. Suddenly, the door behind them explodes into 1,000 pieces with full force. The loud noise frightens the innocent passengers even more. The woman and her children look back, completely terrified. Their faces show pure horror at the new threat that has emerged. Because one of the transformed monsters appears with 4 bizarre arms. The creature was ready to attack the defenseless family without mercy. Seeing the scene, the mother screams desperately along with her children. They had nowhere left to run or hide from the monster, but our MC appears in front to protect them. A pink energy begins to emanate from his arms with great power. He remembers that the duty of the Order of Knights was to protect everyone, and he will not let that family be harmed in any way. With that, the white-haired youth charges with full force towards the monster. He will use all his strength to defeat the bizarre creature. His transformation is activated and incredible power explodes from his body. He was ready to end this threat once and for all. From there, he creates a sword of light and powerful purple energy. His new weapon shines brightly in the middle of the entire car. With a look of fury, he shouts that he will not let the monster harm them. His determination was completely unshakable at that moment. With his sword, he cuts the link between the cars with an explosion. The force of the blow splits the train in 2 in the middle of the bridge. Meanwhile, inside the fight continues, and Jack charges against the monsters. Kenneth also prepares to help his battle companion. Suddenly, the two look back, completely shocked by the scene. They can't believe what the white-haired youth just did, because our MC simply detached the entire car from the rest of the train. And now they were completely isolated in the middle of the bridge. From there, he jumps back into the car with an agile movement. His transformed state seemed much lighter and more powerful than before. Landing on the ground, the enemy praises him and calls him a little doggy. Jack and Kenneth just watch the scene, not understanding the boy's power. At the taunt, our MC glares at the enemy with hatred, and Doga just gives a sinister smile at the whole situation. With that, their car moves further and further away from the rest of the train. The distance between them grew with each passing second. In the other car, the family he saved watches everything from a distance. They were finally safe, thanks to the knight's sacrifice. In his new form, he says that with this, the civilians should be fine. His mission to protect the innocent was successfully completed. Doga, however, finds it all very strange and unexpected, because according to his investigations, only the vice commanders were strong. At these words, our MC shouts for him to shut up, and calls him trash with a deep hatred in his furious gaze. With his sword in hand, he swears he will finish the enemy. His determination was unshakable, and he would not back down under any circumstances. The villain just gives a mocking smile at the boy's threat. He didn't seem the least bit intimidated by the youth's power. With a sarcastic tone, he apologizes for all of it, and says he just wanted to prepare something special for their trip. Even so, he admits that his planning was still quite insufficient. At the mockery, our MC shouts furiously and calls him a scumbag, but Jack holds him back and tells him to calm down and look at the situation. Because the enemy was planning something with the knights' bodies. The bizarre tentacles move and prepare for a new attack. With that, Jack proposes a race, and whoever reaches the enemy first will have the honor of taking out that noisy guy. At this, the trio of heroes faces the enemy with looks of pure rage. Doga just laughs and says this is all very terrifying for him. With that, he warns that if they don't use their heads, they might end up defeated. So, he will make their former comrades fight for him. A purple liquid comes out of the tentacles and enters the knights' bodies. With the order to fight for me, the monsters charge to attack. But the trio of heroes is not intimidated and also joins the battle. Jack prepares to cut one of the tentacles with his brute force. Jack charges with his knives and successfully cuts the disgusting tentacle. Meanwhile, Kenneth fires his weapon to provide cover and help his comrade in the fight. Our MC also doesn't fall behind and charges with full force towards the monsters. But suddenly one of the disgusting tentacles grabs our MC with great force. With great anger, he shouts and tries to free himself from the bizarre creature's grip. From there, an explosion of purple energy erupts from his body with full force. Suddenly, Doga appears in the midst of the confusion and seems to find the situation quite amusing. He then realizes that a frontal attack won't work against that boy. But Jack doesn't care about that and charges with full force towards the main enemy. With hatred in his eyes, he shouts that he will rip that scumbag's head off. The villain, however, just stares at him with a very calm smile on his face. Jack attacks with everything, but the enemy dodges with bizarre ease, because the villain simply vanished, and the car is all destroyed and blood-stained. Furious, Jack runs through the car and shouts for the coward to show himself and fight. He looks everywhere but can't find any sign of the enemy. Jack stands in the dark and completely silent corridor of the train. With his knife in hand, he wonders if the enemy really fled. But the knight thinks there's no way he could have escaped so quickly. His eyes search for any sign of the enemy hidden in the shadows. With great caution, he follows the blood trail through the destroyed car. Suddenly, he peeks through a door and his face shows pure shock, because the real train conductor was lying injured on the floor. The poor man's face showed the pure pain of his severe injuries. The vice commander approaches and is furious with the enemy's trap. Without a second thought, he kneels and asks if the man is okay. The conductor just groans in pain and seems to be on the verge of passing out. Jack then holds him and prepares to use his healing magic on him. But suddenly he stops and his face shows pure terror and desperation, because the conductor attacks him and a blade pierces his shoulder with full force. The man's face is revealed and he gives a sinister and mocking smile. The fake conductor then gives a sinister smile and begins to laugh in a very mocking way. His eyes widen and he screams in a bizarre and frightening manner. Angrily, Jack throws his knife to the floor with a loud clatter. The villain mocks him, saying the knights are a bunch of fools for falling into the trap. Jack clenches his teeth with hatred and glares at the enemy with a furious look. From there, the man's body begins to transform in a bizarre and disgusting way. He reveals that the order always helps the injured, and that his older brother taught him that. With that, a strange creature emerges from the ground, and he asks if his brother agrees. The bizarre creature then continues to grow larger and larger in the middle of the train car. The older brother then reveals himself, and it was the same guy who attacked them before. He holds the small demon in his hand and laughs at the injured knight on the floor. Jack curses him with hatred, but the villain just continues with his mocking smile. Though injured, the knight stands up and shouts that he will finish that scumbag, but the enemy is faster and hits him with a brutal blow that sends him flying. The knight's face shows pure shock at the strength and speed of the villain's attack. The small demon holds Jack and calls him an idiot. He asks his brother if they should throw him out the window, and the other agrees. Doga praises Dulcie for following the plan perfectly. They reveal themselves as the terrible demon brothers, Doga and Dulcie. Fallen and injured, the knight remembers something important, and wonders what happened to the real train conductor. Dulcie replies with a smile that they already threw the man out the window, and that it happened a long time ago without anyone seeing. At that moment, Kenneth runs desperately through the train corridor. He shouts the name of his fallen comrade and battle nonstop. Arriving on the scene, he finds Jack gravely injured on the floor. The vice commander holds him, shocked by the horrible scene. With great anger in his eyes, Kenneth curses the two brothers. He calls them scumbags for what they did to his friend. Doga just mocks him and asks what he thought of the plan. He says that if you use your head, things get easier, because even an elite knight ends up defeated. The two brothers give a smile of pure evil and satisfaction. Suddenly, a blade of purple energy appears out of nowhere. The attack goes with full force towards the two villains standing there. The brothers' eyes widen in pure shock and surprise. They didn't expect such a sudden and powerful attack. The blow hits the small Dulcie, who was on his brother's shoulder, head on. He screams in pain, feeling the deep cut in his body. The bizarre creature continues to scream in total agony without stopping. The power of the attack was much greater than he had imagined. Our MC appears in his transformed state, enveloped in flames, and repeats the part about the elite knight, with contempt. With his feet glowing with purple energy, he advances slowly. The white-haired youth prepares for the real battle. With his eyes glowing, our MC warns that he's going to take their heads. He says that as a rookie knight, he'll finish both of them off. From there, he turns to the enemies with a look of pure hatred. Meanwhile, Kenneth desperately tries to help the fallen Jack. The vice commander presses the wound firmly to stop the bleeding. But the knight's injury was very severe and wouldn't stop bleeding. Desperate, Kenneth realizes the wound is too deep. With that, he screams desperately for Neve to help. A small fairy named Neve appears and shouts that she knows what to do. She prepares to use her healing magic on the injured knight. Thus, the little fairy releases a powerful golden light to heal Jack. The energy envelops the two knights with an intense and healing glow. But Neve warns that since Jack is unconscious, the healing will take time. The process to close the wound would be much slower than normal. Seeing the scene, Dulcie prepares to attack with his bizarre hand. His other hand was completely destroyed by the boy's blow. Doga gets annoyed and calls humans very arrogant. He doesn't like the knight's attitude in this situation. He realizes the two knights are elite and calls his brother. The villain seems to have a new plan to end the fight. With a bizarre smile, Dulcie looks at the situation with malice. He seems to enjoy the idea of fighting such strong enemies. So, the two brothers fire an energy beam at the ceiling. The attack destroys everything and opens a hole in the train car. With the ceiling destroyed, Doga proposes taking the fight outside the train. He wants both sides to be able to fight with everything they have. With a sinister smile, he stares at the white-haired youth and asks if he agrees. The ceiling debris falls around them, creating a tense atmosphere. The hole in the car's ceiling reveals the sky and the bridge outside. The battle was about to move to a new, much more dangerous setting. Our MC grumbles and looks at Kenneth tending to Jack in the background. He tells the boy to leave the self-control to the cook and warns him about the hostages. With a determined look, Kenneth agrees and tells him to leave that to him. At this, the white-haired youth turns and asks what they want. With a smile, Doga replies that his duty is to send them to their doom. He adds that for his master's sake, he won't let them go to the west. Our MC asks what their master is doing in the west. But the villain doesn't answer. Because according to the enemy, he doesn't need to know anything at all. With a sinister smile, he adds that the boy will perish right there. From there, the two brothers jump into a dark tunnel on the bridge. Our MC comments that the place is very dark and prepares for the worst. Suddenly, several glowing eyes appear in the darkness and whisper to kill. With that, a horde of bizarre bats flies towards the white-haired youth. The creatures had giant eyes and a long, disgusting tongue. Unfazed, he creates his energy sword and prepares for battle. With a swift movement, he charges and cuts down the bats with his energy blade. His eyes glow with power, and he is not intimidated by the number of enemies. But the creatures keep emerging from the darkness nonstop and surround him again. He realizes the monsters are endless and needs to defeat whoever is controlling them. Suddenly, one of the bats gets through his defense and attacks him from behind. Before he is hit, a green energy shot saves him, and he is shocked. The boy looks to the side, not understanding where that unexpected help came from, because Kenneth appears up above and shouts, asking if our MC was okay. With his weapon in hand, the vice commander seriously faces the horde of monsters. He says the youth can't handle this alone and tells him to leave his six to him. Our MC gives a smirk and seems to agree with his colleague's help. With that, Kenneth strikes a pose and prepares to show his true power. Seeing the scene, Doga gives a sinister smile and shouts that their journey ends here. Suddenly, the villain's body begins to shatter into several pieces of stone, and a giant wave of blue energy charges with full force towards our MC. The giant blue energy wave advances with full force, and our MC readies his sword. But the white-haired youth runs at top speed towards the enemy's attack. With a confident smile, he says it's a shame because the villain's plan is going to fail. Suddenly, the scene changes, and a hand grabs Kenneth's face with great force. To everyone's surprise, the one doing it is our MC at an absurd speed. The demon's eye watches everything, not understanding why the boy attacked his own friend. With that, the creature charges with full force towards Kenneth, who is being held. The vice commander is shocked and wonders why his comrade is doing this. Seeing the scene, Doga is confused and asks how the white-haired youth knew about the trick. Our MC reveals that knights trust their brothers and crushes the villain's core. With a determined look, he adds that he completely trusts his comrade. In a flashback, he remembers Kenneth asking him to leave everything in his hands. And he also remembers his friend saying he was counting on his help a lot. At this revelation, Doga panics because his plan went completely wrong. With that, he shouts that his friend never lies and destroys the core with his overwhelming power. With that, our MC charges with full force towards the enemy with a look of fury. Doga is completely shocked and unable to react to the boy's surprise attack. With a powerful spin, the white-haired youth hits him squarely with a devastating blow. The impact is so strong that it cracks the entire bridge floor, and the villain screams in pain. Our MC holds him with great force, and the enemy is unable to defend himself. With a smile, he asks what the boss thought and how it feels to be defeated by a rookie. In his final moments, Doga desperately calls for his master, Tempest, for help. From there, the scene changes, and the train continues its dark and silent journey. With that, Dulcie's body explodes into 1,000 pieces from the boy's overwhelming power. Before the enemy's remains, our MC kneels and returns to his normal form. He stares at the disgusting body and says he can't replace Jack, but he fought anyway. With a smile, he stands up and says he will surely be forgiven for his act. The white-haired youth then stares at the enemy's remains with a victorious look. Suddenly, he notices something strange and is confused by a new and bizarre vision, because he sees himself alone in an infinite desert, and the train was on an endless track. A strange figure appears on the tracks, and he is shocked. The person was holding a giant and very intimidating hammer. But suddenly, the vision disappears, and he returns to the train. Kenneth shouts that someone is standing right on the tracks. Without a second thought, the vice commander hangs onto the side. The train continued at high speed with no sign of stopping. Looking ahead, he spots a woman with a serious expression. She seemed to be waiting for them in the middle of the bridge. That woman was muscular and held an ice hammer. Her presence was imposing and very intimidating to everyone. The warrior reveals herself as Bridget, the commander of the 6th Division. She stares at the train coming at full speed towards her. Her ice hammer glowed with a cold, bluish energy. The weapon looked extremely heavy and very powerful. From there, the commander slams her hammer with full force onto the tracks. The force of the blow creates a shockwave on the metal floor. With that, a giant wall of ice appears out of nowhere. It stops the high-speed train with absurd force. Our MC and Kenneth are shocked by the scene. They shout in surprise because they can't believe it's ice. At this, the train finally stops, frozen on the tracks. The commander and her squad were waiting for them right there. Soon after, Bridget enters the car and walks towards them. The white-haired woman seemed to have a very clear objective. She ignores the two and passes by a boy hanging upside down. The commander kept repeating the phrase, "Hand it over." Suddenly, the woman slaps one of the boys. Our MC and Kenneth are shocked by the bizarre scene. With a serious look, she demands a full report on the situation. The boy who was slapped prepares to explain everything that happened. The boy who got slapped grumbles and feels a strange sensation in his body. At this, Bridget gets irritated and again demands a full report on the situation. But the soldier ignores her and shouts, completely shocked, the title, "Your Highness." With that, he kneels in respect, and the commander asks why he is there. Our MC and Kenneth are confused and shout together, "Older sister." From there, everyone gets off the train and gathers outside on the bridge. One of the soldiers hands a bouquet of flowers to the commander while the two watch. Laika wonders if Jack is really the guy who took the vow of celibacy forever. Bridget then turns and stares at the two with a serious and very intimidating look. The boy explains that the reinforcements turned into demons and were all defeated in the fight. He continues and reveals that the enemy was named Doga and served the powerful Tempest. The soldier confirms that the villain mentioned the name of the feared demon mage Tempest. At this information, the commander faces the situation with great seriousness and attention. So she orders her men to contact headquarters immediately, and also asks them to protect the civilians who were separated from the rest of the train. One of the soldiers then turns and calls our MC and Kenneth. He says he has an idea of where the demon mage might have gone. At this, Laika is confused and asks if that guy is the same one they faced. Kenneth in turn questions if this mage was so famous. The vice commander looks away, a bit embarrassed by the question, and says he's no expert on the subject but knows a few things. He explains that the mage is a legend from a long time ago, because he was the one who opened a hole in the sky to summon the powerful demon king, and he was also responsible for turning several humans into demons. His name was Tempest, the demon mage and ruler of them all. Our MC remains silent, processing all the information. He repeats the word legend, with a very serious and determined look. With that, the scene changes and takes us to a vast and endless desert. The sand shifts with the wind, creating a completely desolate landscape. From there, one of the commanders explains that their destination is the Celestial Demon Temple, and that Tempest will surely try to do something there. Laika is very surprised and asks if celestial demons aren't just fairy tales. He can't believe those stories are real. But Kenneth looks at him seriously and says, absolutely not, because those legends are actually part of their world's history. The commander then reveals that the Divine Knights defeated the Demon King, and cut pieces of his body that turned into intelligent monsters. One of these creatures controlled the weather and created lightning storms. A purple dragon flew over the ruins, causing much destruction. Another one burned entire cities with its powerful fire. Its flames were so intense they even melted rocks. There was also a monster that created great floods out of nowhere. The waters rose and destroyed everything in their path without any mercy. And the last one had the power to shake the earth and split it in two. A dragon flew over a lava canyon with a red sun in the sky. With that, Kenneth explains that the knights of that era had no choice, and all they could do was fight and seal the monsters in temples. One of these temples is shown, and even sealed. The demons still emit a miasma, and this evil energy continues to create more monsters and demons. Suddenly, in the darkness, a pair of pink eyes watches everything. The presence was sinister and seemed to be waiting for something very specific. The white-haired woman explains that the place was once fertile and full of life, but the water demons sealed there sucked all the moisture and turned it into a desert. Our MC and Kenneth listened to the explanation very carefully. Their faces show the seriousness and weight of that information. The woman continues and reveals that they received a report, and that their group made contact with a man who creates demons. The commander confirms that headquarters already had rumors about the mage, and if the guy on the train used that name, they must act on it. With a tense look, the woman thinks that this is the worst possible combination, and that the mage could cause a disaster never before seen in history. The image of Tempest appears with a dark red aura, and the question of whether he was ahead of them hangs in the air with suspense. Our MC stares at the horizon with a tense and worried look. He wonders if the legendary mage was really nearby. The narration describes Tempest as the walking disaster, the celestial demon who once brought the Demon King to this world. Faced with the danger, the creatures pulling the boat accelerate. They run desperately through the endless sandy desert. The woman then announces that they are almost at the temple, and that the entrance to the underground location should be around there. Suddenly, one of the creatures pulling the boat screams in pain. It seemed to have felt something very strange and dangerous in the sand. With that, the boat is pulled with full force into the sand, and everyone is completely shocked, not understanding the situation. Suddenly, the boat is yanked with incredible force, and the three of them are shocked by the situation. With that, a giant, sinister red moon appears in the dark desert sky. Ruka stares at the moon, finding it familiar and wondering where he's seen it before. A mysterious voice then echoes in his mind, saying that this feels nostalgic. The white-haired young man is confused, wondering whose voice is in his head. Meanwhile, the boat continues to be swallowed by the desert quicksand. From there, they are all thrown into the air and begin to fall endlessly. Down below, they spot a giant structure that has emerged from the sand out of nowhere. Our protagonist screams in shock, realizing it's the Celestial Demon Temple. Using his agility, he manages to land on top of one of the temple's towers, but the tip of the tower breaks under the impact, and he immediately loses his balance. While falling, the young man desperately screams for the tower to stop rising. Suddenly, the sound of a party erupts, and colorful confetti flies everywhere. Ruka is confused by the scene, and a voice says it's happy to finally see him. Tempest the mage then appears, revealing that last time he only used a puppet. Our protagonist repeats that the enemy used a puppet to fight. He glares at the powerful mage's shadowy figure from atop the tower. With that, Tempest's shadowed face reveals a sinister, mocking smile. He seems to be getting a real kick out of the whole situation. At this, Ruka grits his teeth in anger and finally understands. He yells out, asking if he's really Tempest the demon mage. The mage then reveals his true face with a very calm smile. His eyes show he's completely at ease with the knight's arrival. Our protagonist is utterly shocked by the villain's appearance. His eyes widen, as he was not expecting this at all. Suddenly, Bridget appears out of nowhere and attacks with her ice hammer. The commander charges straight at the mage without a second's hesitation. Tempest, however, easily dodges and catches Kenneth in his arms. His speed was incredible, and he seemed to have predicted the attack. The commander lands on the ground, creating a shockwave with her power. She prepares to attack the enemy again with all her strength. With a smirk, the mage scoffs that the knights haven't changed a bit. To him, they're still as barbaric as they were in the good old days. The white-haired woman then glares at him and asks if he is the demon mage. Her hammer glows with a powerful bluish energy. Angrily, she warns him that this is not a place for him to invade. With a serious look, she demands that the mage leave at once. Tempest, however, just sits down and says he refuses to leave. His calm and mocking attitude irritates the commander even more. He explains that he conducted several experiments leading up to this moment, and that the monumental day he had been waiting for has finally arrived. Suddenly, a drop of rain falls, and the sound echoes throughout the area. Something very strange begins to happen in the desert sky. With that, a bizarre rain starts to fall over the large temple, and the red moon continues to shine brightly in the dark sky. The commander and her men are shocked by the rain in the middle of the desert. Bridget screams that it can't be, her face showing pure terror at the situation. With a smile, Tempest confirms that he has already resurrected Lord Vabel, the celestial water demon. From there, the rain begins to fall harder on the large temple. Kenneth and the other knights are shocked by the mage's revelation. The commander then glares at the enemy with a look of pure hatred and determination. Our protagonist is also terrified by the demon's resurrection. Suddenly, a small, female figure appears in the middle of the heavy rain. The pink-haired girl with horns yawns as if she just woke up. With a sleepy face, she complains that she's feeling very lazy and tired. Our protagonist is confused and wonders if that's really a celestial demon. With a smile, the mage wishes a good morning to Lord Vebel, who has just woken up. Tempest then kneels before her and apologizes for waking her from her slumber. With that, he kisses the creature's hand, and a blue mark glows intensely. The mage then asks her to exterminate the descendants of the knights who sealed her. With a smile, the mage asks her to sweep the knights away from there, but the pink-haired girl shoves him away, and the rabbit in her hand glows. Witnessing the scene, our protagonist and the other knights are shocked. Angrily, Veeble tells him not to give her orders and complains about him waking her up. Tempest is embarrassed and just stares at the girl with a strange expression. Haruka observes the scene and wonders if that is really a celestial demon. Bridget warns them not to let their guard down, as she feels a very concentrated miasma. The commander thinks that if that creature is freed from its seal. With a bored look, Veeble stares at the knights, and the woman completes her thought. Suddenly, the pink-haired girl looks to the side and seems surprised by something. Our protagonist also turns confused by the creature's reaction. With that, Veeble moves at an absurd speed toward the white-haired young man. She stops right in front of him and stares at him up close with a curious look. Suddenly, the creature recognizes him and shouts that it's Atron, and that it's been a long time. Our protagonist is completely confused and doesn't understand the situation at all. Veeble asks why he is in her territory, and the young man says he doesn't know anything. With a smile, she reveals that he has been resurrected in a human body. Our protagonist is shocked and repeats the part about taking over a human body. His eyes widen at the pink-haired creature's revelation. Tempest watches everything from a distance and seems to understand the whole situation. He remembers feeling a strong connection to a god from another world. With that, Ruka becomes even more confused by the mage's words. Suddenly, Veeble attacks and destroys one of the towers with her water power. The young man narrowly dodges and yells in shock at the force of the attack. With a smile, she calls him brother and invites him to play for a bit. From there, the creature flies with her bluish aura and calls him to battle. Without a second thought, she throws a spear of water toward the commander. With a smile, she shouts for the white-haired woman to catch the attack. The blow hits Bridget square in the chest, and she cries out in pain from the impact. Our protagonist shouts the commander's name, completely shocked. Wounded, Bridget desperately cries out for her younger brother Jack. Jack, in turn, summons his fairy Neve to help heal the commander. The small fairy appears with a golden energy, ready for action. With that, the creature's magic begins to heal the woman's injured arm. The white-haired commander clutches the spot where she was hit in great pain. In her pendant, she sees the reflection of our protagonist, furious. Suddenly, Kenneth fires a beam of green energy toward Veeble. The creature gets annoyed and tells the knight not to mess with others. With a smile, she invites the young man to come play and have fun with her. Without wasting time, Veeble attacks the commander with a powerful water kick. Facing the attack, Kenneth shoots again to protect his comrades. The pink-haired creature glares at the knights and calls them a nuisance. From there, she unleashes a giant wave of water with incredible power. The water gathers and forms an overwhelming sphere of bluish energy. She then summons water spirits and orders them to finish off the insects. The knights fight bravely against the water spirits summoned by Veeble. Far away, Tempest watches everything with binoculars, finding the demon's power marvelous. He's so excited he's set up his own fan booth to watch the fight from the best seat in the house. His assistant eats a piece of cake and comments that her master seems to be in a good mood. The mage reveals that seeing a celestial demon in action was one of his greatest dreams. He's thrilled to be able to watch the fight so closely with his own eyes. Our protagonist, however, can't believe that a demon first awakened as a human. With his objective completed, the mage decides it's time to head to the northern temple. But suddenly he stops, sensing a new and powerful presence approaching. For a giant, ornate sword descends from the heavens with an overwhelming energy. Tempest gets irritated and complains that the most troublesome person of all has arrived. Atop the sword, the commander, General Arthur, appears in a very imposing pose. With a serious look, she says it seems her subordinates have caused a lot of trouble. She faces the mage with a confident smile and asks if he's ready to fight. The commander of the Divine Knights was there to crash the mage's party. Tempest, the mage, watches everything from afar with a very satisfied look and a sinister smile on his face. On the other side, Commander Arthur also carefully analyzes the battle, noticing all the chaos. At this, she floats on her sword as Kieran appears by her side to receive an order. With a serious look, the red-haired woman calls her subordinate's name and asks something. The blue-haired knight asks who he should fight, and she says it's the celestial demon. Far away, atop the temple, Tempest observes the conversation and says he's going to join them. With a sinister smile and runes surrounding him, he completes his sentence and prepares for something. Suddenly, the commander appears in front of the mage and greets him with a "Hello." Wielding her sword, the red-haired woman asks the villain a very direct question. In an imposing pose, she finishes, asking if he will promise not to cause any more trouble. Tempest and his assistant just stare at her mockingly, unintimidated by the threat. With a jeering smile, the mage simply replies that he'd rather not. Without wasting any more time, the commander charges forward with a powerful strike toward the enemy. The warrior stops, surprised by the result of her attack, saying, "Oh my." With that, a massive explosion occurs, and the commander's face shows pure shock at the scene. Following this, two lights fly across the sky as the commander takes the mage far away. Witnessing the scene, Kieran lands in front of our protagonist, spear in hand. The knight then confirms that their mission is to hold off the celestial demon. He adds that they need to last for 3 minutes until the commander returns. From there, the two prepare for battle, and Kieran tells him to focus. Seeing their determination, Veeble attacks with her water spirits, coming at them with everything she's got. The force of the blow is so great that both are pushed back with difficulty. Suddenly, one of the support knights prepares to help in the battle. With that, he activates his ability and creates a giant area of effect healing circle. Our protagonist is shocked to feel the power of the healing magic in his body. The knight shouts that minor wounds will heal and tells them to go all out. Seeing this, the pink-haired creature gets annoyed and increases the power of her attack. With that, the water spheres begin to bubble in a very strange way. Ryuka senses the danger and yells in shock that the water is splitting in mid-air. To everyone's astonishment, the water spheres multiply and charge forward with full force. Facing the threat, one of the black-haired knights tries to stop the attack with his purple aura, but the demon's water energy pushes forward and collides with the young man's defense. The water spheres continue to advance with overwhelming and relentless force. The knight is shocked that the demon's power broke through his flame barrier. Suddenly, the water spheres are hit by shots of green energy in the air. It's Kenneth, arriving to help, destroying the spheres with his powerful weapon. The young man thanks him, and the vice commander tells him not to push his luck. After all, he explains fire and water don't mix, and his magic is at a disadvantage. With his friend's tip, the black-haired knight seems to understand what he needs to do. At this, Kieran unleashes his electric energy and summons his thunder spear. With a battle cry, the commander calls for his weapon to show its full power. From there, a wave of blue lightning advances and clashes with the demon's water. At the same time, Commander Bridget prepares to use her powerful ice hammer. With a shout of Winter of Demis, she unleashes an overwhelming, freezing energy. Her determined look shows she's gonna freeze everything without a moment's hesitation. The freezing energy surrounds Vabel, but she floats calmly in the middle of the attack. With a bored expression, the creature complains that these knights are very annoying. Suddenly, a hand with a broken shackle appears and says that's enough playing around. With that, the pink-haired girl gathers all the water around her with immense power. The sphere of bluish energy spins faster and faster, concentrating on her body. The creature's power continues to grow, and a new form is about to emerge. From there, Veeble transforms, revealing a much more intimidating appearance. Kieran notices that her aura has grown larger and warns that the real fight starts now. Facing the threat, the black-haired knight unleashes his power with red markings. His eyes glow with hatred, and he prepares to fight with everything he has. In his mind, Veeble calls him brother and asks him not to be so distant. The knight panics at the voice and screams for it to stop immediately. Enraged, he glares at the creature and says he is a human and a divine knight. Vabel is surprised and a little confused by the young man's strong resistance, but suddenly a sinister smile with very sharp teeth appears on her face. Furious, our protagonist screams at the creature not to look at him like that. His red eyes glow intensely, and the pain completely consumes him. Seeing this, Kenneth turns and asks what's happening to his comrade. Ryuka grumbles that this is such a drag, still feeling a terrible headache. He screams in agony, and the vice commander calls his name, completely worried. The white-haired young man realizes it's not just a voice, but something more in his mind. Desperate, he faces his own consciousness and asks who the heck is talking in there. A mysterious voice then replies that if the young man is also himself. With a sinister smile, the voice finishes, saying he'll deal with Vabel with great ease. Our protagonist wonders what that strange voice inside his head is. Suddenly, Kieran senses the danger and shouts that the creature is coming with everything she's got. Vabel floats in front of the red moon, preparing a large and powerful attack. With a smile, the creature charges at high speed toward the knights. Facing the threat, Kenneth fires his weapon and grumbles angrily at the situation. But the shots have no effect and Vabel continues to advance with a mocking smile. Kenneth gets trapped in a water bubble, not understanding what happened. With that, Vabel lands a solid punch on him, sending him flying. The blow throws the vice commander to the ground with great force and speed. Suddenly, a foot stops on the ground, and someone appears to help in the battle. It's Bridget, charging at the bizarre creature with her ice hammer. Her powerful attack creates a wave of ice and shards everywhere, but Vabel catches the hammer with one hand, without any difficulty. The commander is shocked and can't believe the strength of that creature. Vabel's hand glows with a blue energy as she prepares a counter-attack. With that, she fires a blast of power that throws Bridget back with full force. The support knight shouts the commander's name, completely worried. but she says she's fine and tells him to focus only on the healing magic. The young man agrees with a determined look and obeys her order. Meanwhile, the other knight continues to feel a terrible headache. He wonders what the heck is happening, as his mind feels like it's going to explode. The black-haired knight screams that he can't control all this power. With that, he glares at Vabel as the pain in his head becomes unbearable. The creature seizes the opportunity and charges at him without mercy. Facing the attack, his eyes widen in pure shock and despair. The bizarre demon just gives a sinister smile at the pathetic scene. Vabel's glowing hand touches his chest, leaving the young man completely confused. As this happens, a bluish energy explodes from his body, and he screams in pain. The knight's face shows pure agony from the demon's strange power. Seeing this, the support knight desperately shouts Ryuka's name. He realizes the automatic healing mode won't be fast enough. Because of this, he summons the little fairy Neve to use her full strength. The little fairy then flies at full speed and uses her maximum healing power on the young man. Even with the healing, the black-haired knight continues to feel immense pain. His entire body glows with golden energy, and the healing slowly takes effect. Vabel watches the scene and seems a little surprised by the healing magic. With a bored look, Vabel grumbles that the healing magic doesn't impress her. At this, the creature scoffs and says that Acheron has gotten much weaker. Inside the knight's mind, the malevolent entity awakens with a look of pure hatred. The voice screams for him not to ignore it and to surrender everything to its total control. But Ruka resists and shouts for the voice to shut up, as he doesn't know it at all. Enraged, he continues, shouting that he is not a celestial demon. Suddenly, two spheres of light fall from the heavens at an impressive speed. It's Commander Arthur, returning, seemingly having defeated Tempest the mage in their fight. With a smile, she asks if the mage won't give up, calling him quite persistent. But suddenly, a red-haired woman appears and says she'll return the favor. Without wasting time, the warrior charges forward with her sword in hand for a surprise attack. With a battle cry, she attacks the commander general with all her strength. The blow hits its mark and Arthur's legs are completely severed. The woman praises the commander for showing no emotion and says she won't let her escape. Even wounded, Arthur smiles and says the warrior wants to finish her off no matter what. The commander then asks if the warrior wasn't thinking the same thing, because the red-haired woman needs to get back to help her comrades as quickly as possible. With a smile, Arthur says she can either try to defeat her or go back to help her friends. The warrior looks at the commander with a determined gaze and makes her decision. Thus, she says she will finish the commander and save her friends too. From there, the red-haired woman summons a rain of swords with her power. Her technique is called Morgan's Rain of Judgment, and it comes down on the commander with full force. Arthur's body is completely destroyed by the warrior's powerful attack. Her pieces disintegrate in the air as she falls slowly lifeless. Even in pieces, the commander complains that it will take a long time to recover. She then congratulates the warrior for buying time and hopes her friends are okay. Soon after, the white-haired woman says goodbye, and her body explodes in an intense light. The warrior watches the scene and flies at high speed toward the red moon. With that, she charges forward to complete her next important mission. Her face shows pure determination to achieve her goal at all costs. The narration explains that only 2 minutes and 50 seconds have passed. But when the warrior returns to the temple, the scene is one of pure destruction. She finds her comrades fallen and wounded in the rain, and in the center of it all, a single celestial demon stood victorious. From there, the scene takes us back a few minutes before that tragedy. The support knight notices that everyone's injuries are getting worse. Before them, Vebel watches them with a terrifying calm, not moving at all. With that, the three leaders decide to use a powerful combined attack. Kenneth then shouts the name of his technique and unleashes his green energy with full force. Chiron and Bridget combine their powers of thunder and ice into a single blow. The combined energy of the two advances with overwhelming and destructive force. The attack transforms into a giant energy cannon and heads toward the demon. With that, a massive explosion of power engulfs the entire destroyed temple. Kenneth then shouts in shock, asking if they managed to defeat the creature. But the support knight's face shows pure shock at the result of the attack. Kenneth shouts in shock because Kieran's attack simply didn't work at all. At this, the creature just makes a shush gesture with her hand and stares at the knight. All the other knights are completely shocked and can't believe what they're seeing, because the power of the ice and thunder cannon is reflected and advances toward them. With that, a gigantic explosion occurs, destroying everything around with immense force. Fallen and wounded, Kenneth groans in pain amidst the debris and dust. Vabel then appears unscathed and looks at the knights with a very indifferent gaze. Suddenly, the creature moves at an absurd speed toward the commander. The white-haired woman is shocked and realizes she won't be able to dodge in time. Vabel's hand glows with a bluish energy as she prepares for the final blow. But the support knight throws himself in front and takes the demon's punch. Even with the blow, he smiles and says he's already used to the pain. With that, he holds the creature's fist with all his strength to keep it from moving. Veeble is surprised and wonders what happened, as her energy has become unstable. With a bored look, she creates an ice hammer and prepares to attack. Commander Bridget is shocked and can't believe the strength of the bizarre creature. With a sinister smile, Veeble says that all of this is very irritating. With that, a wave of water erupts from the ground with impressive force. The attack throws all the knights away with overwhelming power. Fallen and wounded, Ryuka observes Chiron's lifeless body on the ground. Desperate, he sees the bodies of his other comrades lying in the rain. His eyes fill with hatred, and he can't believe they're all gone. The voice in his mind warns that if he keeps stalling, everyone will perish. The knight then gets up and creates a blade of purple energy in his hand. Enraged, he screams and charges straight at the celestial demon. With a powerful kick, he attacks the creature with all his might, but Veeble blocks his strike, and he is shocked by the demon's defense. The purple energy in his hand begins to slowly dissipate. With a counterattack, the creature throws him away with a single blow. The black-haired knight falls to the ground, completely defeated and powerless. Fallen and angry, our protagonist groans in pain and glares at the demon. From above, the creature looks down at the young man and asks if that's all he's got. The black-haired youth just watches in silence, completely powerless. With a bored look, Veeble says the fight has become very dull and uninteresting. The reflection in the young man's eye shows the creature preparing to attack. She screams that they are all killjoys and that she's tired of all this. With a cold gaze, the creature tells them all to just be gone once and for all. The white-haired young man is terrified by the deadly threat approaching, but suddenly Chiron appears in front to protect his comrade. The commander shouts at him not to just stand there and tells him to pull himself together. With his water sword, he holds back the attack and tells the young man to survive. With that, the commander's body is completely destroyed by the demon's power. Our protagonist's eye widens in pure shock at the scene. Desperate, he screams, watching the sacrifice of his battle companion. He can't believe that even Chiron is gone, having protected him from the creature. The voice in his mind blames him for everything, saying he's too weak. With tears in his eyes, our protagonist is speechless in the face of despair. Suddenly, he finds himself alone in a completely white and empty place. Confused, the white-haired young man turns around, bewildered by the situation. With that, a mysterious voice calls to him, and he spins around, startled. For the figure of his transformation was sitting right there in front of him. The being then says that if he wants to save everyone, he needs to give up his body. The entity stares at him and calls Ryuka's name with a very serious look. It adds that it's talking about itself and that he is Ryuka. Our protagonist shouts that he doesn't understand and asks who the heck he is. The creature calls him slow and says he's pretending not to understand the situation. At this, the being calms him down and reveals that they are in the world of the mind, and that no matter how much they talk, time won't pass outside. Thus, it introduces itself as Acheron and says it was sealed in the north. With a sinister smile, it reveals that it's what they call a celestial demon. Our protagonist repeats the words "a celestial demon" and the name Acheron. The entity stretches and says it will explain everything to him at once. From there, the scene goes completely dark, and the story flashes back to the past. Acheron explains that 15 years ago, he escaped his seal with a piece of himself. Ryuka then asks if that small ball of energy was really the demon. The being confirms it, saying that in that state, it could do nothing and needed a body. Because of this, its energy flew to a village that was being attacked by monsters. There, it found a woman who was on the verge of perishing amidst the destruction. Without a second thought, the entity incarnated in her womb to survive. At this, it reveals that the baby born from that woman was our protagonist. The white-haired young man's eye turns red, and he can't believe it. Acheron mocks him, showing how he always deluded himself by saying he wasn't a monster. With a smile, the entity reveals that he was always a monster from the very beginning. The being adds that he was a monster even before he was born. Back in the mind, a sphere of energy appears between them, and the story continues. Acheron reveals that thanks to the Holy Grail, he has finally grown to this point. Our protagonist is completely in shock at the entity's revelation. With a sinister smile, the entity shows its true malevolent intention. With that, the scene returns to the moment our protagonist awakened his power. His eyes show pure confusion at the energy consuming him from within. Lying on the ground, he screams in pain, feeling the overwhelming power in his body. He screams that it hurts so much and that his throat was burning relentlessly. Acheron then says that he was worried all this time about some pact. Our protagonist's face shows pure agony from the situation. At this, the entity holds the young man's face and says that this is the pact. Acheron asks what he can offer when he has nothing but his own body. With that, he says he will lend his power, and in return, his spirit will burn. And when the young man can no longer bear it and his spirit is completely depleted, Acheron will finally emerge and take control of everything that exists. With a sinister smile, he adds that the young man's body will finally be his. Achiran curses at our protagonist and swears he'll be done with him. But after that, he says he'll finally get to have some real fun. He intends to make the most of his new freedom. The entity tells the young man to give up, as the flames will ease his pain, otherwise, he will continue to burn forever, suffering without end. The being explains that, after all, this is a space without any concept of time, and the energy continues to burn the white-haired youth's soul. With a sinister smile, he tells the young man to slowly turn to ash. The pain seemed to be completely unbearable for him. Witnessing the scene, Achiran just watches with a very confident look. He believes his victory is already completely assured. Despite the pain, our protagonist clenches his fist tightly. He's not going to surrender so easily to the malevolent entity. Suddenly, the young man's energy explodes with overwhelming force. Achiran is completely shocked, not understanding what's happening. The youth shouts that he won't let the demon awaken any further, and with great anger, he warns that he won't let Achiran do as he pleases. Faced with this resistance, the entity grumbles angrily at the situation. The young man's power was much greater than he had imagined. With that, an explosion of energy engulfs the entire area. The force of our protagonist's power was truly impressive. The white-haired young man screams in pain from all the released power. The energy continues to consume his body without stopping for a second. Achiran is shocked and wonders what the heck is wrong with him. The young man's resistance was something out of the ordinary for the demon. The entity shouts for him to give up, as it would be much easier. It wonders how the youth can even stand while being burned. With a determined look, the young man says that it doesn't understand anything, and that's why he can't let the entity leave this place, no matter what. His face shows all his willpower as he prepares himself. The white-haired youth still has the strength to keep fighting. In his thoughts, the young man remembers how he never wanted to see anyone get hurt again. He remembers seeing his fallen comrades and how that motivated him. Because of that, he swore he would become stronger to protect everyone. And even with all the pain, he continues to fight with all his strength. Faced with this resistance, Achiran shouts, completely surprised by the scene. The entity can't believe the young man still has the strength to fight against it. With that, our protagonist charges straight at the celestial demon. His fist flies toward the malevolent entity's face. Achiran is shocked and can't believe the young man can endure so much pain. The entity screams, wondering how he can still attack it. With a solid punch, the young man hits the demon's head with full force. Achiran groans in pain but remains standing after the powerful blow. With a sinister smile, the entity tells him not to push his luck. Achiran screams that he made a pact and received the benefits for it, and warns that all of this is not enough to truly defeat it. Achiran is completely surprised by the white-haired youth's audacity. Our protagonist says that the power it lent him is not nearly enough. His eyes glow with an overwhelming energy, and he seems to want even more. Enraged, he screams and demands that the malevolent entity give him all of its power. At this, Achiran becomes thoughtful and repeats the word power, not understanding the situation. The young man confirms that this little bit of power isn't enough to defeat the celestial demon. He refuses to surrender his body and says he will fight himself, so he needs more strength. Faced with this refusal, Achiran charges straight at the white-haired young man, but our protagonist extends his hand and prepares to absorb the entity's power. Achiran just grumbles in anger, as his plan for domination has gone completely wrong. With great hatred, he shouts for the young man not to get cocky, calling him despicable trash. With that, an explosion of energy occurs, and the two clash with incredible power. Back in the real world, the warrior appears, and Vebel looks at her with a bored expression. The creature complains that she thought she was going to have fun, and calls Achiran a disappointment. Our protagonist lies on the ground, his hair covering his face, completely defeated. Vebel creates a sort of bluish energy and says the young man is weak. With a look of contempt, she warns that the weak should simply disappear. The creature then prepares to attack, but her arm is grabbed tightly. With that, she cries out in surprise and sees our protagonist with a new energy. With a smile, he apologizes for being an insect as the power envelops him. The creature is confused and wonders who the heck he really is. Her eye shows pure shock, and she can't understand the situation. Our protagonist replies that he is just an insect and a human, and with a smile, he reveals himself as someone who has swallowed a demon's power. The white-haired young man then appears with a new and powerful transformation. Vebel is shocked by the young man's overwhelming presence before her. The creature then gives a sinister smile and seems very excited for the fight. With that, she shouts that this is great and that she doesn't care who he is. Thus, the demon charges straight at our protagonist. Her fist of energy flies toward the white-haired young man. The creature's fist clashes with the young man's, and he holds her back with great force. With that, Vebel groans in pain and is shocked by the young man's overwhelming power. Our protagonist's hand transforms and a powerful bluish energy envelops him. Thus, he lands a direct hit on her with a concentrated and devastating energy strike. The pink-haired creature screams in pain from the impact and can't believe the scene. On her knees, Veeble glares at the white-haired young man, completely defeated. Our protagonist just watches her with a cold and emotionless gaze, but the demon gets angry and stands up with a sinister smile full of hatred. With that, she fires a blast of energy and says he's forgetting something. The creature then envelopes herself in a sphere of water and says that this is her power. She screams that there's no way he can win and unleashes an overwhelming wave of energy. Our protagonist, however, just gives a slight smirk at the demon's confidence, because the water attack simply diverts around him, and the creature is shocked. With a confused look, Veeble asks if he has forgotten something by any chance. At this, the young man unleashes an explosion of blue flames with all his power. With a serious look, he says that a flame strong enough can evaporate water. Veeble is completely shocked and grumbles angrily at the young man's revelation. Enraged, she calls him trash and charges straight at him. The white-haired young man hits her with a powerful blow, knocking her to the ground. Fallen and wounded, Ryuka calls out our protagonist's name, not believing it. He feels a much stronger power coming from the young man in his new form. Ryuka stares at the white-haired youth and wonders what he really is. Veeble's body slowly disintegrates from the overwhelming power of the attack. She groans in pain and glares at the young man with a look of pure hatred and fury. Facing the fallen creature, our protagonist just stares at her with contempt. He calls her weak and asks what the problem is in a mocking tone. With a sinister smile, he taunts her for being defeated by a mere human. The white-haired young man asks if she is even lower than an insect. With that, Veeble gets angry and shouts for him not to get carried away with the victory. She says that playtime is over and unleashes all her power at once. With a scream, she tells him to be crushed and creates a giant cube of water. With that, our protagonist is hit head on and seems to struggle against the pressure. The creature screams for him to perish as the water cube descends with full force. But the young man is enveloped by his blue flames and says that she's the one who should perish. He adds that she's the one who should evaporate and unleashes all his fire power. In this way, his fire power begins to push the water cube upward. Veeble is completely shocked and can't believe what is happening. The blue energy completely evaporates the water, and he announces that this is over. Without wasting time, he fires a blast of energy with all his might. The creature is caught in the blast and screams in pain from the overwhelming power of the attack. Her body begins to completely disintegrate in the midst of the energy explosion. Afterward, only dust remains and the temple is left partially destroyed. Our protagonist then returns to normal and stands alone amidst the destruction. Suddenly, the warrior appears and calls him weak with a very serious look. The red-haired woman stares at the young man and seems to recognize him from somewhere. With his face full of tears, our protagonist calls out for Commander Arthur. He apologizes, saying he couldn't protect all his comrades. Enraged, he screams that all of this happened because he was too weak. The red-haired woman just watches him in silence for a moment, but suddenly a gentle smile appears on her face to comfort him. Ruffling his hair, she says no, that none of it was his fault. The commander explains that everyone there fought like knights, including him, and that the young man achieved a feat that no one has ever managed in history. The white-haired youth is completely shocked and doesn't understand. She tells him that the time for him to show his true worth has finally come. The young man stares into the light, still processing the commander general's words. The warrior reveals that he will become the sword to eliminate the invaders. The story then flashes back 15 years to the Order's headquarters. A young Kieran argues that even though it's strange, he's just a baby, because the village where they found him was destroyed by a surge of monsters. The commander explains that the desecration of the northern temple coincides with the increase in monsters, and the fact that the monster surge stopped was around the same time he found the baby. At this, Kieran is speechless but continues to defend the child's life. He says he'll take responsibility, and the woman reminds him of his vow not to have a family. The knight asks to raise him in the order but makes a very serious promise. Holding the baby, he swears that if the child becomes a threat, he will eliminate him himself. Back in the present in the 6th Division's infirmary, Ryuka is recovering. Our protagonist calls for Kieran and asks if he's okay after the fight. With a relieved smile, the white-haired young man says, "Thank goodness." The commander then turns to the young man with a gentle and caring look. In his mind, he remembers that Ryuka didn't seem like himself during the battle, because in his transformation, he looked like a true and powerful celestial demon. With that, the commander ruffles our protagonist's hair, surprising him. With a smile, Kieran thanks the white-haired youth for all his help. The young man gets all flustered by the affection and asks if the others are all right. Kieran explains that thanks to Jack's divine arts, everyone was saved. Our protagonist is relieved and asks if the commander can get up. The knight says that Arthur asked for them to see her when they woke up, so they head to a very luxurious part of the headquarters. In front of a large door, Kieran announces his presence to the commander. Our protagonist follows him in silence, a little nervous about the summons. But upon entering the room, The white-haired young man is completely confused. He can't understand what was happening at that moment, because Commander Arthur was standing in the middle of the room with a glowing sword. Her weapon emitted a powerful and very intimidating purple aura. The red-haired woman's gaze was serious and showed great concentration. She seemed to be preparing for something really important. The warrior then dispels the aura and apologizes for startling them. Kieran asks if that is her divine weapon, but notes that it's different. The sword the leader was holding looked much older and more ornate. It wasn't the giant weapon she usually used in her battles. With that, she reveals that the weapon's name is Khalid Fulch. The woman explains that the sword was a memento from her late brother. From there, Arthur asks our protagonist to sit in a chair. The young man agrees a bit awkwardly, but obeys the commander's order. Suddenly, the white-haired young man turns his head, completely shocked. He had no idea what was about to happen, because the red-haired woman places the sword on his lap without warning. The young man is paralyzed by his superior's unexpected action. Our protagonist and Kieran are completely speechless at the scene. Neither of them could believe what was happening. With a serious look, the commander tells the sword to awaken from its slumber. The red gem on the weapon opens to reveal a bizarre, red eye. Suddenly, the young man is transported to a completely different place. He finds himself alone in a white and completely empty space. Our protagonist is confused and looks around, not understanding anything. Arthur explains that it is a sword with the power to enter the world of the mind. With that, she reveals that she thought she'd go and greet the Acheron that resides within him. Before them, the entity appears in chains with a very intimidating appearance. With a sinister smile, the demon mocks him for coming back for another beating. The commander then introduces herself and confirms that he is Acheron, the celestial demon. Acheron looks at her and says the red-haired woman looks a lot like him. He reveals that the one who sealed him in that temple was the founder of her order. At this revelation, the warrior simply replies that she feels very honored. Our protagonist shouts for him not to hurt her, and Acheron calls him a show-off. The commander interrupts him and warns that because of this, he is now a prisoner, trapped by the chains of the pact. The entity realizes the tables have turned. Acheron gets angry, but Arthur explains that he is just a spiritual form. The entity's eye glows with hatred, as it does not accept this humiliation. Our protagonist is confused, not understanding the conversation about the demon's power. The commander explains that the Acheron here is just a fragment from the northern temple. With a sinister smile, the entity confirms that her theory is correct. He boasts that if he returned to his original body, his power would be much greater. At this, our protagonist glares at the entity with a very serious look. Arthur warns him that because of this, his body must be in trouble, and the demon is shocked. The warrior explains that the mage knew he was inside our protagonist. Ruka is surprised and starts to remember something important that happened. The commander reveals that their bond is not contractual, and that he is part of the demon's body. With that, she says the mage can resurrect demons or turn humans into monsters. The woman adds that if he gets his hands on a demon's body, the damage could be immense. Acheron explodes in rage, refusing to accept that his body could be stolen by a mage. Our protagonist yells at him, telling him to get out if he has a problem with his body. The entity curses at him and complains that he should have finished off Veeble in a single blow. Arthur then says that since he doesn't want his body stolen, they have a common goal. With a smile, the commander extends her hand and proposes an alliance between them. The commander's hand extends toward the chained entity in front of her. Our protagonist shouts in shock, not believing this guy will listen to them. With a serious look, Acheron surprises everyone and says, "Fine." Even so, he warns that he has his own conditions, as he hates taking orders. With a sinister smile, he demands that they train our protagonist to be a better vessel. Arthur agrees, as they would certainly welcome a power boost. At this, the entity gives a satisfied smirk, pleased with the deal. He then taunts the young man, who shouts furiously at the idea of taking orders from him. The demon's eye narrows slightly at the white-haired youth's response. With that, a purple aura envelopes our protagonist, who looks very determined. He shouts that he will get stronger, because he refuses to see anyone get hurt again. Acheron smiles and says that this is simply excellent. Thus, he breaks free from some of the chains with his overwhelming strength. With a shout, he grabs the young man and vows to forge him into a perfect vessel. From there, he holds him tightly and says he will make him stronger than everyone. The overwhelming purple energy continues to envelop them both with great force. From a distance, Kieran watches the scene, his face showing a very worried expression. At this, Arthur asks if he's worried, and the knight immediately confirms. The commander tells him not to say that, as our protagonist yells angrily at the situation. With that, she announces that they will intercept the mage at the northern temple where Acheron rests. The scene then takes us inside the dark temple, where a coffin was sealed. There, the celestial demon's body awaited in a battle that was about to begin. Thus, in the 6th Division strategy room, the commander lays out the new plan. The red-haired woman announces that Kiran and Ryuka will go north with her. Bridget asks about the demon's body, but the commander says the monsters will become unstable. Kiran asks about transportation, but Arthur says they will go by land to avoid detection. Kenneth remains silent for a moment but seems to disagree with the decision. With that, he offers to go with the commander to help with the mission, but Kiran tells him to return to headquarters, as Fran needs her vice commander's help. Faced with the order, Kenneth just agrees, and our protagonist observes the scene. With a smile, our protagonist asks if Kenneth is worried about him. The vice commander confirms, as he's going up against a celestial demon, and it would be strange not to be concerned. Hearing his concern, the white-haired young man looks at his colleague differently. With that, Arthur gets everyone's attention to talk about Atron's desire to train him. She explains that the land route will take time, so they need to leave as soon as possible. Thus, the commander asks if it would be acceptable to conduct his training during the journey. Atron says he doesn't care and agrees if it makes the brat more useful to him. With that, the commander asks if our protagonist agrees to the entity's terms. With a determined look, the white-haired young man confirms that he accepts the training. For him, the place or the method doesn't matter at all right now, because the young man is determined and needs to get stronger at all costs. He needs to gain full control over Atron's power to protect everyone. Kenneth looks at him and seems to understand his teammate's determination. Arthur says she needs to instruct the other temples to be on alert as well. Kiran asks if the mage wouldn't go north first, but the commander disagrees. The commander reveals she has a bad feeling about the whole situation, because Tempest the mage was supposed to have been missing for a long time but was operating in the shadows. The red-haired woman wonders why he chose to appear now. The image of the mage floating in front of a red moon appears in her mind. At this, Kiran and another knight turn around, completely shocked and surprised. Arthur confirms their suspicions, saying that's exactly what she's thinking, because in a peaceful and quiet village, many dangers can be hidden. Sitting in his room, the mage thinks that there are other entities to worry about. Suddenly, his wooden hand simply falls to the floor without any warning. He then tries to put his hand back on but complains that it won't stick. His assistant tells him to be quiet and helps him put his hand back in place. With a sigh, he complains that he was defeated fair and square. He adds that old folks take a while to heal, and that the commander was quite rough. The little girl calls him master, and he just smiles with a pained expression. With his eyes closed, he seems to be recovering from his intense fight. Suddenly, two new mages appear and are introduced as Ethan and Ava. Ethan is furious with Tempest and says he really made a huge mess. The white-haired mage greets them and says it's been a while. Ethan just grumbles angrily and seems to dislike his presence. With that, he charges forward and prepares to attack the white-haired mage. His hand slams down on the table, breaking it into several pieces instantly. Seeing this, the little girl just says, "Wow," surprised by the force. Tempest, however, complains because that was his favorite table in the room. Ethan shouts that the Western celestial demon is gone, and that the mage has lived long enough. Tempest says his little maneuver might interfere with the plan, but he wanted to wake him up early. With that, Ethan grumbles angrily, but his colleague calms him down, saying he didn't do it for nothing. Ava then reveals herself, showing her pink eyes with a very sinister smile. She says she has kept a sample of Lord Behir in a very safe place. With that, she reveals a jar with a green liquid and a bizarre eye inside. The eye then opens and stares at the two mages with a very sinister presence. Tempest says there was some merit in waking him up, and the mage calls him absurd. With a smile, he announces that he has some fun news to share with them. Ethan repeats the word, fun, and seems to be not enjoying the conversation at all. With a sinister smile, Tempest reveals his new and evil plan. He says the northern celestial demon has been revived, and its body was left behind. At this revelation, Ethan and Ava are completely shocked and speechless. The white-haired mage says they had been looking for a way to break the seals for a long time. Tempest mocks his colleague for being locked in the basement, and Ethan tells him to shut up. With a determined look, he says that this is an opportunity for them. Ethan reveals that they need to dedicate themselves to summoning the god from another world. At this, Ava announces that she's going south to have some fun. With a sinister smile, she reveals she's going to awaken the southern celestial demon. Ethan then announces he's heading east and tells Tempest to heal up and go north. The white-haired mage complains about the order, but his colleague tells him to get going. With that, Ethan unleashes a green energy and orders all the vessels to be gathered in the north. The mage Ava smiles with determination, as her deepest desire was about to be fulfilled. Tempest the mage agrees with a smile, as his great wish was close to becoming a reality. For at the hands of the demon god, destruction and creation would finally be forged in the world. At this, the mage confirms his plans with his little assistant by his side. With a sinister smile, he shows he is very satisfied with the progress of his evil plan. But to stop this, the Order of Knights gathers for the great battle that is approaching. Commander Arthur faces her men and says they need to leave as soon as possible. A few hours later, the group finally departs for the northern temple to stop the threat. Our protagonist then realizes they have traveled a long way to get there. Along the way, they encounter various bizarre and dangerous monsters on their path. Facing a dark forest, the young man asks if the temple was still far away. With a map in hand, Kieran explains that their destination is just beyond that forest. However, the commander warns that the forest was a large and dangerous nuisance, because the place was crawling with monsters and demons everywhere. Hearing the warning, our protagonist stares at the dark forest with a very worried look. At this, Kieran suggests that maybe they should go around the forest. But the commander interrupts and tells them to go straight through the middle. With a smile, she adds that defeating monsters and demons is their job. Thus, the knight grumbles and calls our protagonist to go with him. The two then jump from the cliff into the dark and dense forest. Inside, they hear a strange sound and realize they are not alone. Our protagonist tenses up and prepares for whatever comes his way. He thinks there are a lot of monsters here, and the situation reminds him of his trial. Arthur then calls for the two and tells them it's time to move. With that, the commander grumbles, and the two advance to follow the red-haired woman. The three knights then leap through the trees with impressive agility. The commander starts counting and defeats a bizarre creature with a single blow. Soon after, she continues her count and easily finishes off another monster. With her two swords, the warrior shows off all her combat skill. Our protagonist is shocked by her speed and shouts that she's too fast. The white-haired young man complains that he can't even land a hit. The commander's speed was simply on another level for him. Meanwhile, Arthur continues her count, defeating more monsters. She didn't even seem to be breaking a sweat fighting them. Suddenly, the warrior stops and grumbles that this isn't enough. Her expression showed she was quite dissatisfied with the situation. With that, the red-haired woman runs off alone into the forest. She seemed to have a new plan to deal with the monsters there. The commander stops and stares into the darkness with a very serious look. She seemed to be waiting for something specific to appear. She explains that when they reach the level of a demon, they run away, because the stronger creatures are smart and hide from her. At this, Kieran throws his sword with all his might into the darkness. The knight charges forward to attack a creature that was hidden. The weapon hits a giant, bizarre monster dead on. The creature screams in pain from the commander's accurate strike. With the enemy defeated, the commander calmly adjusts her glove. Meanwhile, the two young men look completely exhausted. The blue-haired knight comments that it must have been the boss of the area. Arthur confirms and says the area should be safe now. The red-haired woman then tells them to keep moving. Our protagonist looks at her with a face of pure exhaustion. The white-haired young man is speechless after all the chaos. He was still processing the commander's absurd speed. The scene then shifts to night, and the group rests around a campfire. The sound of burning wood echoes through the silent forest. Over the fire, some fish were slowly roasting on wooden skewers. The smell of food hung in the air after a very tiring day. With that, Kieran hands one of the fish to our protagonist. The young man is very grateful for the food and his comrade's gesture. Our protagonist calls for Arthur and asks why she isn't eating with them. The commander just watches him from a distance, leaning against a tree with her arms crossed. With a calm smile, the red-haired woman replies that she's fine. Hearing her answer, the white-haired young man is confused and doesn't understand the situation. Kieran notices the young man's confusion and looks at him with a very serious expression. While eating his fish, he remembers seeing Arthur in the dining hall a few times, but he realizes he has never actually seen the commander eat anything at all. Suddenly, the warrior looks at him and says it's true, as she needs to train him too. Our protagonist feels awkward and says he'll eat quickly for the training. The red-haired woman says no, because she wants to save time and energy. From there, her sword glows, and the young man's eyes take on a purple aura. The commander points the sword at him, and the youth is shocked by the scene. With a smile, she says they're going to do it right now in the spiritual realm. The young man screams in fright, caught completely off guard by the commander. He then finds himself in that place again and sees Atron kneeling before them. With an excited smile, the commander announces that his training will now begin. At this, she turns to Atron and says she has a favor to ask. The warrior asks if he can make this space look like his homeland. With a sinister smile, the entity just gives a short, mocking laugh. From there, the place transforms into a volcanic landscape filled with lava. The ground cracks, and our protagonist screams in fright at the sudden change. Shocked, the white-haired young man wonders if this is the world Atron came from. Arthur explains that to draw out his maximum potential, he and the demon need to synchronize more. Our protagonist repeats the word synchronize, completely confused by the situation. Kieran then explains that if the legends are true, each demon has a certain nature. He gives the example of the last celestial demon they faced, which was of water, and adds that just like the last one, Atron also possesses the nature of fire. The commander confirms and says that the level of fire here should be his strength, and he shouldn't feel the heat. Despite the explanation, the white-haired young man remains wary of the place. Acheron then shouts for him to stop the darn whining right now. The entity says he doesn't need to mentally prepare for this. With a sinister smile, he snaps his fingers and tells them to go all out. With that, a wave of fire advances, and our protagonist braces for the worst. 4 spheres of fire surround him, and the white-haired young man is shocked. The explosion throws him back with great force, and he groans in pain. He loses his balance and almost falls into the lava but manages to hold onto the edge. The young man is startled by the sound of the lava bubbling right next to him. With a determined look, Arthur asks if he wants to get stronger. The commander then tells him to make everything his own power and strength. With a serious look, the red-haired woman tells him to absorb it all. At this, Acheron gives a sinister smile and snaps his fingers again. Another wave of fire advances, and the white-haired young man prepares to endure it. The spheres of fire surround him once more, and he faces the threat with determination. With the explosion, he groans in pain, but this time he withstands the impact. With clenched teeth, he endures the heat and transforms the power into his strength. His face contorted in pain, he screams that it's too hot and his chest hurts just to breathe. Acheron taunts him, asking if he wasn't going to make fire his ally, but the young man shouts that this is nothing. Suddenly, a new sphere of fire charges toward our protagonist. The young man is hit head-on by the explosion and is thrown back with great force. With that, he is completely engulfed in flames and screams in pain from the intense heat. His eye widens in pure desperation as his body continues to burn relentlessly. Lying on the ground, he is completely exhausted, with no strength left to get up. Panting, our protagonist realizes he was almost burned to a crisp. He then turns and faces the 3 who were watching him from a distance without any emotion. With a smile, Commander Arthur simply says, again, at the order, the white-haired young man just grumbles in anger and frustration. Thus, he is hit by another explosion of fire with overwhelming power. And once again, he screams in pain, feeling the flames consume his body completely. Lying on the ground, our protagonist stares at the cracked earth, completely exhausted. With a clenched fist, he thinks that he forgot to make the flames his allies. Our protagonist continues his intense training in the middle of the flaming volcano. At this, Kieran decides it's best to stop for today, as even a spiritual body gets tired. Arthur agrees, saying she thought the same thing, but it seems someone disagrees. For Acheron, sitting on the ground, just grumbles in anger and frustration at the scene. Enraged, he shouts for the young man not to get tired from something so pathetic. From there, the entity unleashes a giant sphere of fire with overwhelming power. The fireball heads straight for our protagonist, who is lying on the ground. His face filled with pain, the white-haired young man watches the approaching attack. Kieran becomes furious and shouts that any more than this is simply overkill. The commander, however, just grunts and seems unconcerned by the situation. With that, the sphere of fire explodes, hitting him head-on with great force. Our protagonist squeezes his eyes shut and tries to endure the pain of the power. Arthur then says it seems so and carries him on her back amidst the fire. With her sword in hand, the commander prepares to do something quite unexpected. Facing the fallen young man, she unleashes a circular energy slash with her weapon. With a shocked face, the white-haired young man stares at the scene, not understanding. Because the commander is carrying him on her back in the middle of that fiery inferno. He thinks that this is incredible, and that the warrior is on a completely different level. Sitting on the ground, he feels useless because he should have been the one doing that. At this, the red-haired woman turns and notices the young man's discouragement. With a smile, she praises him for his good work and apologizes for being too hard on him. Our protagonist then apologizes, saying he was completely useless in the training. He laments that even though he wants to get stronger, he's just holding everyone back. The young man thinks that if the commander is there, someone like him makes no difference. But the red-haired woman says that's not true, and he is surprised. She sits next to him and explains that it was never her intention to make him feel this way. The warrior reveals that since this is a closed space, she will tell him something. With a smile, she leans in and says she's going to tell him her big secret. Far away, Acheron and Kieran watch the scene, not understanding their conversation. Kieran is confused and repeats the word secret, not understanding what is happening. Our protagonist is silent for a moment and asks what her secret is. The commander remembers that in the ceremonial chamber, her vow was to discard her gender. With a smile, the red-haired woman repeats the part about discarding her own gender. At this, Kieran is surprised as he knows she has many other vows besides that one. The warrior reveals that it's usually one per person, but with special permission, she made 10 in total. Our protagonist is completely shocked by the commander's revelation. Kieran also shouts in surprise, not believing she made 10 vows. The red-haired woman explains that this is just one of them, and that the vows are the source of her power. Thus, the white-haired young man finally understands why she is so strong. With that, Chiron grabs him and shouts that he just heard top secret information. The commander explains that a vow is also a restriction, and having many means having many weaknesses. Because of this, she believes she needs to raise knights who can fight even without her, and she calls him by his name. With a determined look, she says that he is the hope that represents this for her. With a smile, the warrior adds that's why she wants him to become even stronger. The young man's eye widens, and a smile appears on his face at the commander's revelation. With a determined smile, our protagonist accepts the mission and shouts, "Wes, ma'am." Karen asks about the demon, but the commander says it will find out anyway, and the young man agrees. With that, the red-haired woman announces that training is over for today, and that they will continue tomorrow. Back in the real world, the commander stares into the darkness of the night with a very thoughtful expression. Meanwhile, our protagonist sleeps soundly near the campfire, completely exhausted. The red-haired woman watches him from a distance with a gentle and satisfied smile. Suddenly, the commander hears a strange noise, and her expression turns serious at the presence. At this, the mage's assistant emerges from the forest shadows with her blue eyes. The warrior recognizes her immediately, remembering seeing her by Tempest's side. Thus, she asks if the mage is still recovering and what the girl is doing there. The girl replies that it needs to be just her and stares at the warrior seriously. The little girl's gaze becomes serious, and she seems to be preparing for something very important. From there, a powerful purple aura envelops her, and she reveals something. The red-haired woman is shocked by the little girl's power. Without wasting time, the warrior also unleashes her energy and prepares for battle. The commander is surprised because her divine arts won't activate at all. The little girl, however, says it was exactly as she thought it would happen. With that, a giant and powerful magic circle manifests around her. From there, chains of purple energy shoot out from the circle and charge forward. With no chance to react, Commander Arthur is trapped by the magic chains. The girl then remembers that Ethan said the commander never ate, and also that no matter how cold it was, she never warmed herself. The girl continues to remember that the warrior never rests and always prays. With that, she recalls that the one who told her everything was a guy named Ethan Amlet. He was a legend who lived before Tempest and the first of the forbidden mages. At this, the little girl realizes there are other powerful mages out there. She adds that the commander is never alone, and that includes her enemies. Thus, the girl reveals that her teachers told her that therein lay her strength and her weakness. With a smile, the warrior says it's embarrassing because she was completely observed. Even so, she asks why she can't use her power even with the girl right in front of her. The little girl explains that to her, others are living things like humans, or even creatures like monsters and demons that exist out there. At this, the commander is completely shocked and can't believe it. The girl then confirms her suspicion and reveals that she has no life of any kind. With that, her eye is revealed, showing that she is a doll with gears. The warrior finally understands that the little girl is a mechanical doll. The girl says that a puppet's body becomes a cage for its soul. Enraged, Arthur tries to break free from the chains, but the force is too great. The little girl then warns the woman not to get in her master's way anymore. Trapped by the chains, the commander falls to her knees, completely immobilized. The girl says the warrior has finally given up and tells her to be a good girl. The commander's eye shows that she won't give up fighting so easily. With that, she warns the little girl not to underestimate her great persistence. With a smile, the warrior reveals that her persistence is on a Demon King level. From there, Arthur unleashes all her power and begins to break the chains. With that, the little girl screams in fright and is thrown back by the explosion of power. She is surprised that the warrior still has so much strength after everything. With a determined look, the girl says the sleeping king will dream of his kingdom. At this, the chains tighten even more on the commander, who tries to break free. With clenched teeth, Arthur continues to fight against the little girl's power. Her eyes show pure determination not to surrender, no matter what. Suddenly, she remembers our protagonist sleeping near the campfire. With a smile, the commander says she's counting on the white-haired youth's help. From there, the chains gather and form a giant purple ball of energy. The sphere of power shines intensely in the middle of the dark and silent forest. The little girl then touches the ball of chains and says the word, Pito. With her mouth open, she prepares to swallow all the energy at once. With that, the girl transforms into a fat, purple creature after eating the energy. Completely exhausted, the little girl falls to the ground and burps loudly after everything. Thus, she is left alone in the middle of the forest with a very tired expression. Suddenly, the little girl senses an approaching presence and turns around, frightened. For our protagonist appears with an expression of pure hatred and worry. With a shocked face, he calls out Arthur's name, completely desperate.